Chapter 360. Kurakin's idol was Kinzu's fleeting time calendar. With his Chinibu personality, only Kinzu's achievements were worthy of his attention. So this Chinibu's life goal was to have a sword maiden that was exactly like Kinzu. Fleeting time calendar's ancient sword maiden was the Yi sword. This sword had always been in the burial grounds, and only the sword pavilion masters knew where it was. For the Yi sword, Kurakin had to endure the disgust to find his father, Zhu Wudao, and ask him to help him find the Yi sword. In the end, Zhu Wudao and Lu Lei talked for a long time, but Lu Lei refused to tell Zhu Wudao. Therefore, Zhu Vren hated his father even more. Zhu Vren could not possibly waste his time on the Yi sword, so he had no choice but to synchronize with another sword mistress, who was also one of the top rankers among the ancient swords. Then, he hoped that he would be able to synchronize with the Yuchang sword when he was a treasured sword. Unfortunately, the Yuchang sword had already been synchronized with Bai Qi. Unless Kurakin killed Bai Qi, he would not be able to get the Yuchang sword. Although Zhu Vren was a severely delusional patient, he would never do something as rebellious as killing someone and snatching a sword. Everyone in the world would punish him for it. At that time, Bai Qi looked like he had at least a few decades left to live. Kurakin, naturally, could not wait for Bai Qi to die, so he had no choice but to find another sword maiden to experiment with. Naturally, Zhu Luren had tried the Heavenly Sword as well. Unfortunately, Heavenly Sword did not react to him at all. As a result, when Gu Han obtained the Heavenly Sword, Zhu Luren felt an indescribable jealousy. Since he had failed to get the Ancient and Sword Maidens, Kurakin set his sights on the famed sword, Yu King Sword. Kurakin had already found out that the Yu King Sword was lying quietly in Yanjing City's sword pavilion. There was no sword wielder who could synchronize with her. As for whether or not he could successfully coordinate with the Yu King Gojinjian, that was not within Kurakin's consideration. In the eyes of sophomore syndrome, everything in the world was prepared for him. As long as he stood before his target, the target would obediently fly into his hands. Come to think of it, Gahan was quite suitable for this situation. Fearing that someone would snatch the Gojin sword, the king of Yu, Zhu Vren, fought with all his might to accumulate his sword essences. Yesterday, he finally broke through the limit of 10,000 sword essences. Just as he was about to set off for Yanjing City to find the king of Yu, Zhu Wudao's order for him to go to Changyang Mountain happened to arrive. That was why Kurakin was so against it. He even wanted to reject Wudao's order, but in the end, he was forced to join the team. He had already made up his mind. Once the matter at Changyang Mountain was over, he would not even return to Yuzhong City. He would follow Liuyan Ling to Yanjing City to find his Yu King Gojinjian. After Kurakin got the answer he wanted to know, he completely lost interest in talking to Gahan. He jumped off the car and returned to the bus. Hearing that Kurakin's goal was the Yu King Gojinjian, Gahan's calm heart started to panic. His sword element was only around 1,000 points. He was still around 8,000 points away from synchronizing with the Yu King. In a short period of time, it was impossible for him to catch up to Kurakin. Therefore, Kurakin would definitely be able to synchronize with the Yu King before him. Previously, Gahan was not worried that someone would take the Yu King away before him. However, after seeing Kurakin, Gahan's heart started to throb. A voice seemed to be telling Gahan that Kurakin might succeed. He would take the Yu King away. The Yu King's love for Gahan was limited to the game. In reality, the sleeping Yu King did not know Gahan at all. Naturally, he would not open a back door for Gahan and let Gahan take him away. It was not impossible for Kurakin to take the Yu King away. Looks like I have to speed up. If the Yu King falls into someone else's hands, Gahan, will be nothing. Gahan's heart started to throb. The Yu King was Gahan's. This was something that could not be changed. The night passed uneventfully. Without Yuan Ko coming to disturb them, Gahan waited until 3 o'clock. He did not see Song Yifei come over to take over his shift. However, Guhan didn't rush her. Instead, he just waited on the roof of the car, silently. It wasn't until 4 o'clock that Song Yifei came to Guhan expressionlessly. Move! Song Yifei pushed Gahan and sat in Guhan's position. She looked at the long night without saying a word. In fact, Song Yifei waited until this time to appear. Song Yifei woke up at 3 o'clock. In other words, she had never fallen asleep. After Gahan left the room, Song Yifei could no longer suppress her desire. She reached her hand into her crotch and rubbed it for a long time. Then, she collapsed and laid on the bed like a pile of mud. After the water in her lower body was discharged, she could no longer suppress the water in her upper body. A large amount of tears flowed out of Song Yifei's eyes. Everything that happened just now made Song Yifei feel extremely ashamed when she recalled it. What was even more shameful was Gohan's resolute attitude of leaving. What was this? After flirting with her, he threw her aside? She was like Gahan's toy? Was Gahan so unfond of her? Did he hate her that much? She had humiliated herself to such an extent, and this was the result she got. More importantly, Song Yifei could be sure that Guhan had never thought of him at all. Everything was just an illusion of her wishful thinking. When the illusion was broken, all that was left was a forcefully hardened shell. Only a shell made of indifference could protect Song Yifei's fragile self-esteem at this time. Of course, Gahan did not understand this. He did not even know what the things he did meant. Gahan was far less talented in love than he was in fighting. The reason why he agreed to share a room with Song Yifei was purely because he wanted to test if 3 strikes of Green Lotus would have any different effect on a sword maiden or a human. Practice proved that 3 strikes of Green Lotus had almost the same effect on a sword maiden or a human. When Song Yifei smelled Gahan's scent through Guhan's clothes, Gahan had already started to react. In the end, when Song Yifei was about to tease Gahan, Guhan felt that his lower body was about to be exposed. Only then did he decisively leave Song Yifei's bed. It was because Gahan did not want Song Yifei to see him embarrassed. Your eyes are swollen. Did you not sleep well last night? Guhan raised his head and saw Song Yifei's red and swollen eyes. There were faint traces of tears on them. You cried the whole night. No, I had a nightmare. I cried in the dream. Song Yifei forced herself to sleep. You didn't cry because of me, did you? Guhan immediately saw through Song Yifei's disguise. Have you fallen in love with me? Song Yifei asked. What? Guhan asked. No, never. Who would fall in love with an idiot like you? You're a pervert. Song Yifei was a bit flustered. She did not expect Gahan to say these things without hesitation. As a model of an aloof Prince Charming, shouldn't Guhan be even more aloof and disdainful of things like relationships? Whatever. Guhan stood up and was about to leave the roof. You can fall in love with me, but I can't promise that I'll fall in love with you. You can fall in love with me, but I can't promise that I'll fall in love with you. You can mate with me, and I promise that I won't reject you. You can scold me, and I promise that I won't scold you. You can hate me, and I promise that I won't hate you. I know that I'm a complete jerk for saying this, but I'm sorry. Before my life stops, I'll stay like this. I'll hide some things, but I don't like to hide things about relationships. Yifei, think about it carefully. But no matter what, I hope that we can still be friends. I don't have many friends, and you're my 3rd friend. I can promise you that. After saying this, Guhan disappeared from the roof, leaving Song Yifei sitting on the roof in a daze. What is this? You want me to give up? Song Yifei kept thinking about what Guhan had said just now. Song Yifei analyzed it over and over again, but he still couldn't figure out the reason. You said that you don't want to hide things about relationships, but in the end, it's still so confusing. You can't understand anything. Song Yifei spat. But to her surprise, after hearing what Gahan had said, she felt a lot better. Fine, let's be friends for now. If I want to find a man, I can find any handsome young man. Why would I hang myself on Gahan's tree? Song Yifei stuck out his tongue and stared at the plains in the distance until the sun slowly rose from the horizon the next day. It seemed that tomorrow would be a good day again. The floating bus set off at 7 the next morning. After about 4 hours, it arrived at the last large stronghold in Yuzhong City, Yiyang Fortress. Yiyang Fortress was built along the river. It was built under the leadership of the Longevity Jiandi. It was about 1/30th the size of Yuzhong City. The Yuyang Fort was not a base city suitable for human habitation because it did not have a dimensional barrier. The defense of the Yuyang Fort was completely dependent on the sword-bearers. Throughout history, the Yuyang Fort had been conquered by the Yuan family at least 40 times. On average, it would fall every 10 years or so. A fort like that could not be used as a place for human habitation. Yang Fortress was a large supply point for the sword-bearers. The sword-bearers had to survive in the wilderness and kill Yuan Ko, which consumed a lot of resources. It was not practical to rely on Yuzhong City for supplies. It would take too long to go back and forth. That was why Yang Fortress was built. With Yang Fortress, the sword-bearers could move around in a larger area. At the same time, they could provide some warning to Yuzhong City. The bus would stop at Yang Fortress for 2 hours to buy some supplies and do some repairs. Chapter 361. According to the plan, Gahan and the others didn't need to enter Fort Yuyang to rest. They had only left Yuzhong City for less than a day, so they had plenty of supplies. It was enough for them to make a round trip from Changyang Mountain. However, with the addition of Yu Wenjun, Guhan and the others had no choice but to enter Fort Yuyang. This was because Yu Wenjun's sword Maiden had been severely damaged in the battle with Commander Leopard. The blade of the sword had already been shattered to the hilt. With just one more light attack, this sword Maiden would probably break on the spot. Therefore, Yu Wenjun had to go to Jiangyin City and find a swordsmith to repair the broken sword. Otherwise, Yu Wenjun would be a complete burden, and he wouldn't be of any use in the Changyang Mountain ruins. From afar, Fort Yuyang looked like a carambola, full of sharp edges and a murderous aura. The gate of Fort Yuyang was completely made of dimensional crystals, but it was very small. It was only 5 meters wide, 4 meters tall, and 2 meters thick. It couldn't even compare to the gates of some villas. However, because the gate was small, it could withstand Yuan Ko's powerful attacks. Even a Yu realm Yuan Ko's attack could withstand hundreds or even thousands of attacks. The reason why the gate was small was to increase the strength of the defense, and it also prevented large vehicles from entering Fort Yuyang. There wasn't much space inside Fort Yuyang, and the streets were very narrow. There wasn't a parking lot either. Other than bicycles, all other vehicles were prohibited from entering. Gahan could only park the floating bus in the parking lot near the gate and walk into Fort Yuyang. As for the safety of the floating bus, there was no need to worry about it. Without thousands of Yuan Ko, they wouldn't even be able to get close to Fort Yuyang. Once there were so many Yuan Ko, there was no need to worry about vehicles anymore. Instead, they had to worry about the safety of Fort Yuyang and whether or not they could defend it. At the gate of Fort Yuyang, there was a strict inspection process. Not only did they have to check their gadgets, but they also had to check if they were humans and if they were sword ladies. Many Yuan Ko liked to disguise themselves as humans to enter various base cities and forts. They were originally humans in the other world. Using a CT scan alone, they were completely human. There was no way to distinguish them. Later, scientists discovered that Yuan Ko carried a special trace element. This was a trace element that would only appear in creatures that had passed through dimensional rifts. By detecting this trace element, they were able to completely block out Yuan Ko. The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit and Ku Rakin did not get out of the car. Only Gahan, Yu Wenjun, and Song Yifei entered the fortress. Originally, Gahan didn't plan to go to Yuyang Fort. However, because of Gu Yun, the food they prepared wasn't enough. Gahan needed to replenish some food in Yuyang Fort. Song Yifei was very curious about Fort Yuyang. It was her first time leaving Yuzhong City, so naturally, it was also her first time coming to Fort Yuyang. How could she let go of this opportunity to watch the show? After entering the fortress, Yu Wenjun and Gahan parted ways. He needed to repair his sword lady. The gathering place for swordsmiths was a small area in the east of the fortress, while Gahan bought food in the west. They were in completely opposite directions. There weren't many types of goods sold in the fortress. It wasn't a place for people to live a luxurious life. Instead, it was a place for swordsmiths to replenish themselves. Therefore, most of the goods sold were high in calories, nutrition, and could be eaten immediately. It was impossible to buy a large amount of red braised meat, which Qingpin liked to eat. Gahan didn't see anyone selling meat in the entire Fort Yuyang. This was a bit difficult. Gahan knocked on Qingpin's head in the pouch. "Hey, Qingpin, I can't buy your red braised meat." Qingpin originally wanted to lie on the bed with ET on and sleep soundly. She didn't want to follow Gahan into the fortress. However, when she heard that Gahan was planning to buy meat for her, she immediately became energetic. She stayed in Gahan's pouch and opened her eyes wide to look around. She wanted to see if there was anything that could make her, the adorable Qingpin, drool. Unfortunately, Qingjiu and Guhan were the same. They went to a few shops and still couldn't find any meat. This was very disappointing. Qingpin looked around sadly. In the end, she happened to see a stall selling fried food at the foot of the city wall. "Gahan there. Let's go there and take a look." Under Qingpin's guidance, Gahan found a stall selling fried food. He realized that the pan wasn't frying potatoes, sausages, or any other conventional fried food. What he was frying was a white thing that was as long and as thick as a finger. "Sir, do you want to try it? This is the specialty of our Yuyang fortress. Crunch, crunch." The peddler eagerly introduced it to Yuyang. "This thing is called Crunchy? What kind of name is that? Does it taste good?" Gahan asked. "All right, you'll know if it tastes good or not after you try it. If it doesn't taste good, it's free." The vendor used his chopsticks to add a piece of white crispy and placed it in front of Gahan. Gahan ate it without hesitation. Well, it did feel dry and crispy in his mouth. This thing was wrapped in a layer of dough, so the outermost layer was especially crispy, just like the outer skin of a KFC chicken drumstick. The meat inside felt like tofu. It melted in the mouth and was very smooth. It tasted like a mixture of nuts and chicken. It was indeed a rare delicacy. "How is it, Gahan? Is it delicious? Is it meat?" Qingpin asked expectantly. The taste is not bad. It's quite delicious. Qingpin, you should try one too." Gahan picked up a piece and put it into Qingpin's mouth. Qingpin quickly ate it, then chewed it and swallowed it directly into his stomach. How can there be such delicious meat in this world? After eating a mouthful, Qingpin's eyes suddenly lit up and he stared at the pot of crispy meat. Saliva flowed out of his mouth uncontrollably, and all of it dripped into Gahan's nursery pouch. "Gahan, buy all of it. Qingpin wants all of it. It's all Qingpin's. It's so delicious that Qingpin is dying." It seemed that this thing was infinitely attractive to Qingpin. Since Qingpin liked it, Gahan naturally would not be stingy. "How much is it? I'll buy all of it." Gahan said generously. "It's not expensive, 2,000 yuan per kilogram. There's 6 kilograms here. I'll sell it for 10,000 RMB. The peddler's face was full of smiles. This crispy noodle would normally not sell so well, especially after knowing the source of the crispy noodle's main ingredient. Very few people would buy it from him again. He was only able to deceive the new swordsman who came to Fort Yuyang for the first time and did not know the truth. "It's really not expensive." Gahan inadvertently recalled the frog meat he had eaten in Miling. In terms of taste, it was not as delicious as this crispy meat. However, it cost 8,000 yuan per kilogram and 16,000 yuan per kilogram, which was 8 times more expensive than the whole crispy meat. It was only slightly more expensive than natural pork. "I want all of it. Pack it up for me." Gahan swept away all of the peddler's crispy noises and left under the peddler's grateful gaze. Although Qingpin loved the crispy meat, it was only 6 kilograms after all. It was not enough for Qingpin to eat for one meal. Therefore, these crispy meat could only be defined as snacks. There was no trace of it that could be used as a meal. Helpless, Gahan could only buy a lot of ham sausages from the supermarket. It was said that this thing was produced with a recipe from before the apocalypse, and half of the meat was in it. However, at a price of 500 yuan for 10 kilograms, Gahan did not believe that it was made of meat. Even if it was ordinary synthetic meat, 1 kilogram would cost 80 yuan, and 10 kilograms would cost 800 yuan. How could 10 kilograms of ham be cheaper than meat? Unexpectedly, Qingpin did not dislike the taste. Therefore, Gahan bought another 500 kilograms of ham sausages and put them all in his dimensional pocket. Only then did he feel that it was enough for Qingpin to eat along the way. On the other hand, Gohan's dimensional pocket was also filled with all kinds of food. The dimensional pocket of the sword bearers did not have a lot of space. It was only a few cubic meters. However, there were dimensional pockets with more space, ranging from 10 cubic meters to 1,000 cubic meters. They were sold on the market. However, those dimensional pockets were very expensive. The cheapest 10 cubic meters cost 5,000 hero coins. Gohan only had 1,000 hero coins on him. He could not afford a better dimensional pocket. However, it was not that Gohan could not afford it. If he handed over his marquee Zergs to the quest center, he could exchange them for 20,000 hero coins. He would become rich instantly. After solving the problem of Qingpin's food problem, Gohan was about to return to the floating bus outside the fortress. Just as he was about to set off again, Gohan suddenly received a call from Wenjun. "Mr. Gohan, there's a small problem. Can you help me?" Wenjun's voice on the communicator was a little low and ashamed. It seemed that something embarrassing had happened to him. When Han's son saw Wenjun, he was sitting in front of a blacksmith shop. A muscular blacksmith was standing behind Wenjun with a look of disdain. F***CK. You don't have money, and yet you're here to repair a sword maiden. Why are you acting like a boss when you don't have money? What's going on? Even if Gohan did not ask, he could guess the reason. Wenjun was out of money. "I don't have enough money," Wenjun stammered. "He wants 130,000 RMB, and I only have 50,000, so..." Wenjun was so ashamed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. 130,000? Gohan frowned. Repairing a sword maiden won't cost more than 50,000 RMB anywhere. "Boss, why are you taking 130,000 from my friend? For normal damages, I only charge 20 or 30,000 RMB for repair and materials. But I don't just do normal repairs. I use an Earl-type dimensional crystal fragment to repair it. Big brother, an Earl-type dimensional crystal fragment costs no less than 100,000. My 130,000 is the cheapest I can offer. I only included the materials. I didn't even include the repair fee." Chapter 362. This was troublesome. Wenjun had asked the blacksmith to use an Earl dimensional crystal to repair it. Compared to normal repairs, using a dimensional crystal was called a perfect repair. After a perfect repair, not only could the sword lady return to its original state, but it could also improve the quality of the sword lady. The attributes of the sword lady would be closer to the attributes of a natural sword lady. Therefore, many sword bearers like to let the swordsmith place dimensional crystals into the sword lady when they repaired it. It wasn't unfair for the swordsmith to charge Wenjun 130,000. It was indeed worth it. Obviously, the problem was Wenjun himself. He knew he only had 50,000 renminbi. So why did he ask the blacksmith to use a dimensional crystal to repair it? "Mr. Wenjun, is what this Mr. Sword Forger said true? Did you ask for the perfect repair?" Gohan asked Wenjun. Of course, he took the initiative. I even confirmed with him 3 times whether he was really going to use the dimensional crystal to repair it perfectly. The swordsmith immediately jumped out and said, "It was me." Wenjun lowered her head. "Mr. Gohan, can you lend me 100,000 first? I will definitely return it to you in the future. I was the one who injured Liha. I want to give Liha a flawless body. I don't want her to be incomplete after she recovers. Mr. Gohan, please help me. Lend me 100,000 renminbi, and I'll pay you back." He didn't expect Wenjun to have such an idea. Did he want him to pay for it? Thinking about this, Gohan could not help but feel annoyed. No wonder the E-clan would continue to decline. Every generation of the E-clan was this kind of person. It was like girls before the apocalypse. Their families were poor, and they had no money, but they would still buy things on Taobao. After buying the things, she went to her boyfriend's side pitifully and forced her boyfriend to pay the bill. If it was really his girlfriend doing this, it would be fine. But Wenjun was still a familiar stranger to Gohan. What was going on? However, Gohan had no choice but to pay for Wenjun. Otherwise, the swordsmith wouldn't let Wenjun go. The disciplinary committee might even arrest Wenjun. Reneging on a debt was something the disciplinary committee would deal with. Of course, if Gahan asked Liu Lei to mediate, then there would be no problem. But only an idiot would ask Liu Lei to mediate. Asking a celestial sword-tier sword wielder for a matter of 130,000 gold coins. Did he really think that Liu Lei was Gahan's father? There was less than half an hour left until the 2-hour meeting time. Gahan had been late the first time they met. If he was late again, who knew what punishment the eagle cat sword spirit would give Gahan? Helpless, Gahan had no other choice. He could only help Yi Wenjun pay the money. Okay, I'll lend it to you, but you have to sign this receipt for me. Guhan's expression was cold. He used his personal terminal to send an electronic version of the IOU to Yi Wenjun. This kind of electronic IOU was supervised by the highest level AI, which was the fragrant Wind Tamono, and had undeniable legal efficiency. Thank you. Yi Wenjun received the electronic receipt and looked at it. Her expression immediately changed. She stood up and asked loudly, Mr. Gahan, what is the meaning of this? Are you trying to take advantage of me? That's right. I'm trying to take advantage of you. Gahan snorted. Although I, Gahan, helped you, it's because I respect Zhetian Jiandi. I don't want to see Zhetian Jiandi's descendants live like this. But I'm not a saint either. I'll be happy to clean up after you. You're wrong. Since I helped you into the car, then I can kick you out of the car. Yi Wenjun, think about it yourself. Gahan's tone was firm. He didn't allow Yi Wenjun to reject him. Yi Wenjun's thoughts were seen through by Guhan, and her expression immediately changed. There was anger, resentment, shame, and shame. Mr. Gahan, Yi Wenjun was wrong. Yi Wenjun will sign this receipt. Yi Wenjun bowed to Gahan and wrote her name on the electronic receipt. She made a copy and sent it to Gahan. The content of the receipt was simple. Today, I'm borrowing 100,000 RMB from Gahan. I'll pay you back 500,000 RMB in the future. After Yi Wenjun signed her name, the 100,000 RMB turned into a debt of 500,000 RMB. 400% interest. This was better than any loan shark. At least you have some backbone. You didn't completely ruin the Yi family's reputation. Gohan's face regained some warmth. I'm doing this to tell you that no one in this world owes you anything. You can't put your hopes on others. I didn't write a repayment date on this receipt. If you want, you can even pay me back 10,000 years later. So don't feel pressured. When you rebuild the Yi family, you'll realize that 500,000 RMB is nothing. It's just a string of numbers. I understand your good intentions. This matter was all Yi Wenjun's fault from beginning to end. Yi Wenjun will never forget your teachings. Yi Wenjun's words were full of sincerity. Look, this was the way he talked. He gave someone a loan of 400% interest, yet he still acted like a life mentor and made someone feel grateful for the rest of their life. TSK, impressive. After solving Yi Wenjun's problem, Gahan and Yi Wenjun returned to the bus on time. Song Yifei had already returned, so the bus started moving again. Yuyang Fortress was the outermost foothold under Yuzhong City's control. If there were roads between Yuzhong City and Yuyang Fortress, then there were no roads outside Yuyang Fortress. The national roads, county roads, towns, and villages that used to be bustling with people had all turned into forests that blocked out the sun. The hovercraft could not operate in such forests, and the hovercraft could only fly 10 meters above the ground at most. Many of the trees had grown to a height of 20 to 30 meters, and it was simply unrealistic to drive over the top of the forest. Fortunately, someone had already thought of a solution, which was to use the highway. The quality of the highway before the apocalypse wasn't that great, and it wasn't like Qingdao's sewers, which were filled with repair parts wrapped in oiled paper. However, reinforced concrete had a long lifespan. It had been 1,000 years since the apocalypse, but about 30% of the highway's concrete structure was still intact. Moreover, 70% of the roads had collapsed, and the large chunks of concrete on the ground wouldn't disappear naturally even after tens of thousands of years. Naturally, no trees could grow under them. Therefore, because of the existence of the highway network, there was still a concrete highway connecting all parts of China. Ordinary cars couldn't travel on such a highway, but it wasn't a problem for the hovercraft. As long as the road was clear and there weren't any trees suddenly blocking the road, the hovercraft could smoothly fly over the concrete ruins. It was even faster than when the highway was in good condition. Yuyang Fortress was built along Dongting Lake, and the Hang Rue Highway passed by it before the apocalypse, crossing the Dongting River system. Gohan's hovercraft only needed to follow the shore of Dongting Lake all the way north to find the Hang Rue Highway easily. 30 minutes after they set off, Gohan saw a concrete bridge crossing the water. 1,000 years had passed, but the bridge was still intact. There were no signs of it collapsing. The hovercraft took a turn and entered the Hang Rue Highway. Next, they just needed to follow the Hang Rue Highway westward and change to another highway at the hub of the highway to reach Gansu. According to the plan, if there were no problems along the way, they would arrive in Gansu in about 3 days. In other words, Gohan had to stay on the hovercraft for another 3 days. These 3 days were fine for Gohan. He only needed to meditate on the bed and clear his meridians. However, for Song Yifei, it was more difficult. On the hovercraft, he could only maintain basic communication with the base city. All the network functions of his personal terminal couldn't be used, and Sword Maiden Online naturally couldn't be accessed. Song Yifei, who was in a hurry, didn't even have time to download a single movie or TV series. It was like a nerd who relied on his cell phone all day and suddenly found out that he had lost his cell phone and the internet. Then, he found himself on a train that had to travel for 3 days. Everyone could imagine how it felt. In short, Song Yifei was restless. He paced around Gohan and said all kind of crazy things. Gohan could only pretend to be deaf. This situation lasted until the evening of the second day, when it was broken by an earth-shattering news. Yuyang Fortress has been breached. After ending the communication with the base city, the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit suddenly gathered everyone and announced the shocking news with a gloomy face. Chapter 363. Suddenly, Gohan and the others heard the shocking news. They had just been purchasing supplies in the fortress yesterday, and the scene was still playing in front of their eyes. It was as if they had just returned home from school, and 1 day later, their friends told them that their school had exploded. Of course, they would be happy to hear that their school had exploded, and they would at least be able to take a few weeks off. But when Gohan and the rest heard the news, it was not good at all. The entire carriage was in a state of panic. How could this be? How could this happen? Among all of them, Song Yifei was the most emotional. Yesterday, she had wandered around the small but safe place. But today, the place had been conquered and no longer existed. The second most emotional one was Ku Rakin. When he heard the news, he looked very sad. He kept hitting the window with his fist, as if everything had happened because of him. If only I had been there. As long as I'm here, Yuyang Fortress will definitely be defended. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Oh well, Jewel Vrin's Shinibu was acting up again. However, on second thought, Ku Rakin was actually a great person to be able to take responsibility for such things. I don't know the specific reason either. Yuzhong City is in a mess now. I talked to them for a few minutes, and they hung up on me. The Sword Spirit Eagle Cat's face was also gloomy. As a swordsman, he had spent most of his life in Yuyang Fortress. When he was young, he and his comrades had gone in and out of Yuyang Fortress time and time again to experience the battles there. In the entire carriage, the Sword Spirit Eagle Cat was the one who had the deepest feelings for Yuyang Fortress. He was the one who felt the most pain in the carriage. Although I don't know the specific situation in Yuyang Fortress, Sword Immortal Cloudy Sky has given the order. Our destination remains the same, and we will still go to Chanyang Mountain. From now on, all of you must be on high alert. This world is going to be chaotic again. The Eagle Cat let out a sad sigh and walked back to his room. Looking at his back, he seemed to have aged by more than 10 years. At the moment, Yuzhong City was indeed in chaos. Whether it was the institutions under the council or the departments under the Sword Committee, they were all in a mess. Everyone was running around to deal with the chain reaction caused by the news of the fall of Yuyang Fortress. Even the air in Yuzhong City was filled with the smell of solidification. The news of the fall of Fort Yuyang could not be hidden from the commoners. Only a few hours later than the officials, This explosive news had already reached the ears of everyone in Yuzhong City. Yanjing City and the other 7 cities had also received the news. Fortunately, this was not the first time Yuyang Fort had fallen. Before this, Yuyang Fort had already fallen more than 30 times. Some of the older people could still remember the last time Yuyang Fort had fallen. The fall of the Yiyang Fortress did not mean that Yuzhong City would fall as well. Therefore, the entire Yuzhong City remained relatively calm when they received the news. Sword Committee, Conference Room 1. Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao sat in the main seats of the conference room. On either side of them were the people in charge of the Sword Committee and the Council. Keep your spirits up. Don't act like your mother just died. When I was young, Yuyang Fort had already fallen into enemy hands twice. One time, I was inside Yuyang Fort. Am I not still alive to see you all now? Calm down and tell me what happened in Fort Yuyang. Lu Lei could not help but knock on the table when he saw the silence in the conference room. He had experienced the fall of Fort Yuyang twice in his life. This was the 3rd time. Where are the people from the Sword Committee and the Rescue Department? Come and report to me first. What's the situation with the sword bearers in Fort Yuyang? Have they all been rescued? Lu Lei ordered. A middle-aged man, sitting on the right side of the table, stood up and reported. Reporting to Lord Pavilion Master, according to our investigation, there were a total of 587 sword bearers in the Fort Yuyang. Among them, there were 300 Fort Yuyang guards and 287 sword bearers who were adventurers. There were 3 spiritual sword bearers, 34 famed sword bearers, 150 treasured sword bearers, and 400 ancient sword bearers. For 21 of them returned to Yuzhong City safely. 51 were sacrificed, and 115 are missing. I'm afraid they're already dead. The person in charge had tears in his eyes when he mentioned the number of casualties. Those who had died were not ordinary people. They were all precious sword bearers. What are you crying for? What are you crying for? Zhu Wudao slammed the table. Didn't more than 400 people return? This is already the best result in history. I still remember the last time when Fort Yuyang fell. Only a little more than 100 out of the 800 sword bearers returned. All 700 of them died there. Compared to the last time, this time is already very lucky. What are you guys crying for? Pull yourself together. Yes, Pavilion Master. Everyone shouted in unison. The atmosphere eased up a lot. But it's strange. Why did so many people return this time? Lu Lei didn't understand. He was one of the 100 lucky survivors who managed to escape from a Yuyang Fort the last time. Lu Lei clearly remembered that he had been through a lot. He had encountered 4 or 5 near-death situations before he was lucky enough to escape back to Yuzhong City. The defense of Fort Yuyang was one of the most tragic battles in Lu Lei's life. Most of the sword bearers had died on the wall. Dozens or even hundreds of Yuan Ko had surrounded the defending sword bearers. Many of them had not lasted more than 3 minutes before their blood stained the battlefield, never to return. In Lu Lei's memory, more than 400 of the 500 people had returned. This was simply impossible. This is all thanks to the quantum teleportation circle. The minister replied, the quantum teleportation circle we built at Fort Yuyang 10 years ago has made a great contribution. All the sword bearers don't have to break out of the city like before. They only need to gather together and guard the teleportation circle. Then they can return to Yuzhong City. That's why we were able to withdraw so many survivors. I see. Lu Lei nodded. He had forgotten about the quantum teleportation circle. With it, their chances of survival would be greatly increased. What about the civilians? What about the civilians in the fort? Zhu Wudao turned to the council staff on his left. According to incomplete statistics, there were more than 3,000 civilians in Fort Yuyang at that time. Less than 300 of them returned. The council staff said with grief and indignation. 4/5 of the 500 sword bearers had returned, but only 10% of the civilians had made it back. That's good. 300 managed to escape. Last time, the number of civilians was only in the single digits. Lu Lei didn't care at all. It didn't matter that thousands of civilians had died. Those civilians were all adults. 99% of them could never become sword bearers again. It didn't matter if they died. It wouldn't affect the future of mankind much. The council should settle the civilians who escaped, arrange for people to comfort them. If the civilians who died were employees of the Sword Committee or the council, compensate them according to the employment agreement. If you went there to do business on your own, then according to the humanitarian rules, you have to compensate them symbolically. Just like that, Liu Lei and Zhu Wudao finalized the settlement of the civilians. These are the simplest things. The most difficult thing was the settlement of the sword bearers and the compensation work. This involved a large amount of money and resources. Also, what about the beacon towers? What's the situation there? Zhu Wudao put the problem on the beacon towers. The safety of the sword bearers was also a big problem. A total of 32 beacon towers were affected by the attack. Most of them escaped into the fort. 6 sword bearers didn't make it back. They're probably dead. The rest of the sword bearers who escaped into the fort are included in the list. The minister in charge of the beacon towers replied. What about those Yuan Kos? What movements did they make after taking over Fort Yuyang? Did they try to attack Yuzhong City? This was also something that Liu Lei and Zhu Wudao were very concerned about. According to historical records, after the Yang fortress was conquered, there was a 50% chance that these Yuan Juns would attack Yuzhong City in an attempt to conquer the entire Yuzhong City. No. According to the report of the sword bearers who were still guarding the beacon towers, there was no movement after Yuan Ko took over Yuzhong Fort. After we lost hundreds of surveillance drones, we found that all of the Yuan Kos were gathered in Yuyang Fort. They didn't leave. They didn't leave after taking over the fort. Liu Lei's expression changed. This wasn't good news. It meant that Yuan Kos were gathering more power. Once they finished gathering their power, Yuzhong City would be attacked. What about the Eagle Cat's sword spirit? Zhu Wudao asked casually. I remember that he went to Yuyang Fort for a mission. Our communication department has contacted the Eagle Cat's sword spirit. They didn't stay in Yuyang Fort yesterday. They're about to leave Hunan Province. The person in charge of the communication department reported. Oh, that's good. The Eagle Cat's sword spirit is the backbone of Yuzhong City. We can't afford to lose any sword spirit sword bearers. Zhu Wudao's expression completely relaxed. As long as Ku Rakin was fine, he had nothing to worry about. By the way, the Eagle Cat's sword spirit also asked us if we should let him come back to protect Yuzhong City. Tell the Eagle Cat's sword spirit that he wants to continue his mission. Yuzhong City doesn't need him back. His mission is the most important. Zhu Wudao said firmly. Your Excellency, you haven't recovered yet. You can't go in. At this moment, a loud noise came from the door. Then a strong man, dripping wet and bleeding from various wounds, rushed into the meeting room. This man was the 100-fold sword spirit. He was responsible for the safety of Yuyang Fort. Chapter 364. What's wrong with you guys? Why did you let the pleated sword out? Didn't I tell you guys not to let the pleated sword leave the hospital before he fully recovers? What the hell are you guys doing? Liu Lei scolded the doctors that followed him. The pleated sword spirit was the spiritual sword-level sword-bearer responsible for guarding Fort Yuyang. During the retreat of Fort Yuyang, the pleated sword spirit was always at the front. After all the sword-bearers had retreated, he was the last to leave Fort Yuyang through the quantum teleportation array. He even activated the self-destruct mechanism at the end to prevent Yuan Ko from using the teleportation array to enter Yuzhong City. Although the pleated sword spirit had lost Fort Yuyang, it couldn't be said that he didn't fight with all his might. Therefore, Liu Lei ordered the pleated sword spirit to stay in the hospital until he fully recovered. In the end, the pleated sword spirit actually ran into the conference room. Looking at the various fluids and needles on his body, he probably ran out from the medical chamber. Sir Yun Xiao, since you guys are having a meeting, why didn't you bring me along? I participated in the entire battle. Who else here has a better right to speak than me? The pleated sword spirit looked around. Everyone who came to the meeting didn't speak. Indeed, if they wanted to ask about the situation of the battle, there was no one more suitable than the pleated sword spirit. Yu, Liu Lei sighed. Doctor, how's the pleated sword spirit? Can he stay here for a while? No problem. Sir Yin Xiao only suffered some superficial wounds. It's not a big deal. The doctor quickly replied. Actually, even without the doctor, the pleated sword spirit's strong physique would be able to heal his wounds in a few days. That's good. Bai Rui, tell us what exactly happened in this battle. How did the Yuyang fort fall in less than an hour? Don't you know that you've already made history? The fastest time Fort Yuyang fell was set by you, the pleated sword spirit. Speaking of this, Zhu Wudao was furious. In the past, the Yang fortress had lasted at least 2 to 3 hours, but now it had been breached within an hour. Those guys in Yin Jing City could boast about it for the rest of their lives. They came too suddenly. We had no warning at all. When Bai Rui said this, there was still a trace of fear left on her face. Our fort's radar and the 32 beacon towers on the periphery didn't detect any trace at all. It was as if they had appeared out of thin air in this world. That's right, this feeling is similar to the quantum teleportation circle. They seem to have arrived near Fort Yuyang through the teleportation circle. That's why we were caught off guard. Half of our troops were still reorganizing in the city, but the Yuan Shun had already broken through the city gates. We didn't even have the chance to defend the city walls, so we were immediately routed. If it weren't for the quantum teleportation formation, I'm afraid only a dozen of us would have escaped. You're talking about the teleportation circle. Zhu Wudao's heart skipped a beat. He immediately questioned one of the officials below him. Formation Defense Department, has our large-scale space restriction formation lost its effect? The large-scale space restriction formation was an array set up by humans to restrict Yuan Ko's teleportation magic. It was unknown how Kanzu had invented it. This array relied on dimensional crystals to activate. Once it was activated, it could isolate large-scale teleportation magic within a 500-kilometer radius. As a result, Yuan Ko had to assemble 500 kilometers away and then march on land to attack the base city. Otherwise, many Yuan Ko, who could use Yuan Ko's teleportation magic, could launch a surprise attack on the base city at any time and from any place. If the base city was breached every few days, humans wouldn't be able to reproduce for the next 1,000 years. But it's possible. This space restriction formation is only effective against teleportation magic. It has no effect on natural rifts like dimensional rifts. The official replied loudly, reporting chairman. The large-scale space restriction formation is operating well. There are no problems, and there is no possibility of it losing its effect. Then how do they teleport over? Zhu Wudao banged the table hard. Are you going to tell me that they teleported over using their special ability? Apart from being unable to restrict dimensional rifts, the large-scale space restriction formation could not restrict pure special abilities like teleportation. Teleportation was a human's special ability and did not belong to the scope of magic. Perhaps they came here through teleportation. The pleated sword spirit paled when she heard the word teleportation. If my memory serves me right, I should have seen the perverted sunspot just now. Perverted sunspot? Lulei exclaimed in surprise. Impossible. Didn't the Freedom Metropolis never participate in the matters between us and Yuan Ko? How could they attack our fortress? No, the Freedom Metropolis has already attacked us. Although the ones attacking us this time look like some demonic beasts, their whereabouts cannot be hidden from my thousand-eye sword. The thousand-eye sword spirit saw clearly that not only are there perverted sunspots hiding among these demonic beasts, but there are also the super electromagnetic gun, updraft, thermostatic reaper, and fantasy killer. You know their status in the Freedom Metropolis. They can be said to represent the entire Freedom Metropolis. The Freedom Metropolis has officially declared war on us, the pleated sword spirits said through gritted teeth. At the same time, the entire conference room began to clamor. Everyone was whispering. They simply could not believe that the one attacking the Yang fortress this time was actually the Freedom Metropolis Yuan Ko. The Freedom Metropolis was a completely different existence in the Yuan Ko community. Other Yuan Ko factions and humans were absolute enemies, and they could not wait to completely destroy each other. They were mortal enemies who had been fighting for 1,000 years. Although 95% of Yuan Ko enter the world, They were instinctively branded with the filth of fighting humans to the death and destroying humans. There were some special Yuan Ko. However, there were some special Yuans that didn't have any hostility towards humans after entering this world. They even had some sympathy for humans and wanted to fight alongside them. During the most difficult times for humans, it was these Yuan Ko that gave humans a hand, allowing humans to hold on until Kinzu achieved Jiandi and led humans to fight back. Therefore, humans called these Yuanwees the free Yuanwees. Later on, the word Yuanwees was removed and became the term for the free. Later, the free people, Yuan Ko, and humans reached an agreement. They could move freely on Earth, but they would not participate in any battles between humans and Yuan Ko. They would also not help either side between humans or Yuan Ko. They would always maintain a neutral attitude. These free people built a city that belonged to them, the Freedom Metropolis, in the no-man's land of the Caucasus. For hundreds of years, the free people, the sword-bearers, and Yuan Ko had maintained a state of peace. Apart from the occasional travel, the free people rarely left the Freedom Metropolis. But this time, the Freedom Metropolis actually took the initiative to attack the humans' fortress. This was something that had never happened in hundreds of years. During the arduous sword era, when the humans were at their weakest, the Freedom Metropolis had always maintained peace with the humans and never attacked them. This was a major event that could shake the entire upper echelons of humanity and make them feel uneasy. It was a major event that could change history and destroy humanity. Legend had it that there were 200-level Yuan Ko in the Freedom Metropolis, which was equivalent to 2 Emperor-level sword-bearers. Their strength might not be very high, but once they joined Yuan Ko, humanity would inevitably face a more dangerous situation in the future difficult sword era. How is that possible? Why would the Freedom Metropolis attack us? Why they tear up the contract? Why is that impossible? Don't forget that the people of the Freedom Metropolis were originally Yuan Ko. It is not strange for them to return to their original camp. I said that Jiandi should not have let the Freedom Metropolis go. He should have taken advantage of their weakness and killed them all. There was a lot of discussion in the audience. Everyone was shocked by this explosive news. Some pessimistic people even felt that the crisis of mass extinction was coming. Silence. All of you silence. Zhu Wudao slammed the table, and the entire table was instantly broken into 2 by Zhu Wudao. The Freedom Metropolis is not that scary. Compared to the number of prehistoric Yuan Ko, even if all the Freedom Metropolis joined Yuan Ko's camp, it would not be a big deal. Humans can resist it. What are you guys shouting about? Zhu Wudao's authority instantly silenced the entire room. Ahem. Let me say a few words. The situation might not be as bad as we think. Lu Lei coughed a few times. With the pleated 1,000 eyes, no Yuan Ko or free people can escape her eyes. Even if they are hidden in the void, 1,000 eyes can easily see them. In other words, the only people who participated in the attack this time were the perverted Sunspot, Updraft, Death God, and the Phantom Killer, right? That's right. The pleated sword spirit nodded. 1,000 Eyes didn't see anyone else. Very good. I think things shouldn't be bad enough to start a war with the Freedom Metropolis. Since these free people are hiding among the demonic beasts, it means that they are still trying to cover their tracks. They're not willing to start a war with us. At least, they're not willing to start a war with us openly. Lu Lei's words were very reasonable, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Since the free people were still trying to cover up, it meant that the situation was not bad enough to start a war directly. At that moment, the minister in charge of managing communications suddenly said to Zhu Wudao, "Chairman, there is a communication from the Swordbearer's personal terminal requesting to connect to you. Unless one new Zhu Wudao's personal communication number, all communications that attempted to talk to him would be transferred to the artificial platform." "No, I'm hanging up. I don't have the American time." Zhu Wudao refused immediately. "Chairman, it's best if you take it." The minister gulped. According to the number, the holder of this personal terminal should be a sword bearer who has gone missing in Fort Yiyang. It's from the missing sword bearer. Everyone who heard the news instantly focused their attention on the Minister of Communications. Most of the missing sword-bearers were in Yuan Ko's hands, which meant that this communication was most likely from the Free People. Sure, it's a good sign that they are willing to communicate, Liu Lei said with a smile. Chapter 365. Ever since the news of Fort Yuyang's fall had been spread to Gahan's team, bits and pieces of other news had also reached them. 4/5 of the sword-bearers had returned safely. This news made Gahan and the others relax a little, but the loss of more than 100 people was still not a small one. Yi Wenjun, on the other hand, was no longer calm. He had lost contact with Uncle Huang. Uncle Huang had recovered from the medical pod the day Yi Wenjun boarded the train, but he was not qualified to follow the team to Chanyang Mountain. Yi Wenjun's qualifications had been specially approved by Liu Lei. Uncle Huang was only an old sword-bearer, so he had no right to go to Chanyang Mountain to participate in the trial left behind by Zhetian Jindi. Uncle Huang knew his place, so when Yi Wenjun went to Fort Yuyang to fix the sword lady, Uncle Huang took the initiative to leave the team. He planned to stay in Fort Yuyang and return to Yuzhong City with the team. Yi Wenjun did not ask him to stay. Uncle Huang was old, and he should stay in the city and enjoy his life instead of following Yi Wenjun around. Yi Wenjun happily said goodbye to Uncle Huang and left Fort Yuyang. Who would have thought that the second day after they left, Fort Yuyang would fall? Yi Wenjun begged the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit to check if Uncle Huang was among the 400 people who had escaped. However, the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit contacted the base twice and found that there was no signal at all, so it no longer cared about the matter. 4/5 of the sword-bearers escaped. Uncle Huang's chances of survival are very high. Yi Wenjun could only comfort herself with these words and silently pray for Uncle Huang's safety. Yi Wenjun's days were filled with apprehension and suspicion, while Guhan's days were filled with clouds and fog, layers upon layers of fog. First of all, Guhan had been puzzled by a certain detail in the Heroes Begin with Insignificance dungeon. He had thought that this detail was very strange, and he could not understand it no matter how hard he thought about it. However, the moment he heard that Fort Yuyang had been attacked, Guhan came to a sudden realization. He was shocked to realize that he had actually been warned about the possibility of an attack on Fort Yuyang. That was I Ching's very serious request that Guhan depart for Chanyang Mountain within 5 days. Guhan did not understand why. Additionally, after exiting the instance dungeon, he had to go through 2 consecutive days of sect challenges. Thus, Guhan had to spend a great deal of his energy and stamina. This made Guhan sleep for another day and night. When he woke up, he was shocked to find that there was less than a day left before the 5-day departure. Fortunately, due to a free combination of factors, Guhan finally set off within 5 days. Regarding this, Guhan couldn't understand. Until now, Guhan suddenly realized that I Ching had already known that Fort Yuyang would fall under Yuan Ko's attack. That was why she had requested Guhan to depart within 5 days. If Guhan had set off on the 6th day, then Guhan would have arrived at Fort Yuyang today. When Yuan Ko attacked, Guhan would most likely be in Fort Yuyang, and his life would be in danger. Thinking about it, this was too frightening. 700 years ago, Zhetian Jindi already knew exactly when Fort Yuyang would fall. Even the desolation level Yuan Ko, Yahweh's great prophecy spell, would not be able to reach this level of accuracy. What happened to Zhetian Jindi in the past? What does it have to do with me? Guhan continued to speculate. The most likely possibility was that Guhan had traveled 700 years in the future and met Zhetian Jindi. They might have even fallen in love. That was why he had left so many things related to him and set up so many backups. Then there was a new problem. If he really traveled to the past, could he return to the present? Why wasn't there any trace of him in the past? Would the world change because of him if he returned to the past? Would the world remain the same or not? All in all, this was a series of profound, deep, and complicated questions that Guhan wouldn't be able to answer even if he spent the rest of his life thinking about them. Fortunately, Guhan didn't need to waste time on these questions. This was because a new problem had arisen. This problem came from Guyun. Ever since she had boarded the bus, she hadn't moved for 2 whole days. She didn't eat or speak and just sat on the bed in a meditative posture. If it weren't for Gu Yun still maintaining her breathing, Gahan would have thought that she was dead. On the first day, Gahan didn't mind, but on the second day, it was a problem that he had to face. If she didn't eat or move, Gu Yun would be in big trouble. Therefore, after this situation lasted for 2 days, Gahan had to forcibly carry Gu Yun out of the bed and put her on the dining table. Gu Yun still remained motionless, which was very strange. It looked like someone had hit her acupoints. Gu Yun, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Guhan gently patted Gu Yun's face, but Gu Yun still didn't have any change or reaction. That's troublesome. Gahan carefully observed Gu Yun and found that her clothes were a little strange, especially the position of her abdomen. The clothes that should have been flat were pushed up, as if there was something hidden in them. Guhan immediately lifted Gu Yun's clothes. He wanted to see what Gu Yun was hiding under her clothes. What are you doing? Pervert! How dare you do this to your sister in broad daylight? At this time, Song Yifei walked out of her room and happened to see Gahan lifting Gu Yun's clothes. Then he stared at the obscene scene inside Gu Yun's clothes. Song Yifei immediately rushed up and slapped Gahan's face. What a pervert! He didn't even let go of his sister. However, Song Yifei didn't slap Gahan's face. Gahan tilted his head and dodged it. Then, he grabbed Song Yifei's hand and forcefully threw it back. Then, he covered Gu Yun's clothes again. You pervert! Sex maniac! Sister complex! Song Yifei's wrist was hurt by Gahan. She held her wrist and said disdainfully, Shut up, it's not what you think. Gahan snorted. Gu Yun hasn't eaten or slept for 2 days and 2 nights. She's in a very strange state now. I'm just checking her body to see if there's anything strange. What are you thinking about? I see. Song Yifei blushed. Indeed, Gu Yun had been in this strange state for a long time. This was an inconceivable thing for a 5 or 6-year-old child who was alive and kicking. Children of this age were all naughty children. They were naughty children who couldn't wait to turn the whole house upside down. It was indeed extremely strange for them to not move for 2 days and 2 nights. What's going on? Did you find anything wrong with her? Song Yifei asked nervously. No, there's nothing wrong with Gu Yun's body. Guhan shook his head. Move aside. I'm going to use the medical pod to check Gu Yun. Let's see if the medical pod can find anything wrong with Gu Yun. In the end, the medical pod couldn't find anything wrong with Gu Yun. This special medical pod, which was specially made for sort of mortals, scanned Gu Yun's body. The result was that the patient was fine. She was just hungry. Helpless, Gahan could only carry Gu Yun out and put her back on the dining table. What should we do now? Song Yifei felt Gu Yun's pulse. It was very normal. She indeed looked very healthy. She was just a little hungry. Why don't we feed Gu Yun something first? Otherwise, she'll starve. Okay. Gahan nodded in agreement. This was indeed the right decision. Before figuring out what happened to Gu Yun, it was more important to solve Gu Yun's hunger problem. But where can we find glucose solution? Gu Yun can't chew now. She can't eat at all. Song Yifei searched around the floating bus, trying to find glucose solution for Gu Yun to drink. However, in a situation where all emergency medical equipment had been replaced by medical pods, not a single medical kit could be found on the bus. There were some medical supplies in Guhan's dimensional pocket, but they were all for hemostasis, pain relief, and detoxification. There was no such thing as glucose that could stop hunger. Why don't we make some rice porridge for her? Song Yifei thought for a while and suggested. Mash the cooked rice into porridge and feed it to Gu Yun. Porridge? Guhan suddenly had an idea. He remembered that he had bought some crunchy crunches in Yang Fortress. Gahan had eaten 1 or 2 pieces. Apart from the crispy fried skin, the inside of the crunchy crunch was a solid high-protein substance with high nutritional value. Moreover, the meat of the crunchy crunch was very tender, almost to the extent that it melted in one's mouth. As long as one put it in one's mouth, the meat inside would automatically melt in the innermost part, just like candy. It was the best food to supplement Gu Yun with nutrition. Therefore, Gahan took out an entire bag of crunchy crunches from his dimensional pocket. Gu Yun usually didn't eat much. She could only eat about half a caddy. Gahan poured out half a caddy of crunchy crunches and carefully peeled off the delicious but indigestible crispy skin on the outside. Then, he peeled off the white meat inside. Hey, this looks familiar. Song Yifei saw that Gohan was dealing with the crunchy crunches and felt a little strange. Then, she took out her personal terminal and searched for a while in the database before she came back to her senses with a tense face. At that moment, Gahan had almost finished dealing with half a caddy of crunchy crunches. Gahan, do you know what this crunchy crunch is? Song Yifei finally couldn't help but ask after a while. What is it? Isn't it a meat product? Gahan didn't notice that Song Yifei's expression was strange. It is indeed a meat product, but do you know whose meat it is? Hee. Finally, Song Yifei couldn't help but laugh out loud. Gahan was stunned. From Song Yifei's laughter, he sensed a very bad premonition. Yes, headless teeth worm, also known as maggots. The larvae of flies usually feed on rotten meat and excrement. The meat is delicious and contains a variety of rare proteins that humans need. It is a very nutritious food. Uft. Song Yifei said seriously and finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. But don't worry. Look at the size of this maggot. It should be a large maggot specially used for breeding. They don't eat excrement. Ha ha. Is it so funny? Gohan glared at Song Yifei. But there was a new problem. Should he let Qingpin eat this thing? Chapter 366. There were only 3 people left in the previously crowded meeting room. They were Cloudy Sword, Celestial Lu Lei, White Colt Sword, Celestial Zhu Wu Dao, and the Pleated Sword Spirit. Communication with the Freeman was a confidential matter. The rest of the people were excluded, leaving only the 3 sword-bearers with sufficient status and strength. Connect them, Zhu Wu Dao said to his personal terminal. Immediately, a projector was lowered from the ceiling of the meeting room, projecting a figure in front of the 3 people. Updraft. Seeing the figure that was projected, Zhu Wu Dao's eyes flashed with a bright light. Just now, he had specially looked through the information of the free people and immediately linked this figure with a famous name. It was a petite figure, only about 1.6 meters tall, with a small flower on her head. Her long, straight, black hair made her look like a naive and romantic girl. It was hard to imagine that this girl was actually related to the powerful Esper among the free ones. Updraft. Good afternoon, gentlemen sword-bearers. I'm Lazy. Nice to meet you. This freeman, nicknamed Updraft, spoke with a warm tone and attitude. It was hard to associate her with a powerful freeman. Oomph. Hypocrite. When the pleated sword spirit saw the rising stream of tears, she was instantly enraged. She wanted nothing more than to peel off her skin, break her bones, and devour her flesh one mouthful at a time. If it were not for Lu Lei and Zhu Wu Dao's repeated warnings, the pleated sword spirit would have cursed her on the spot. I'm sorry. We deeply regret the deaths in your city. This is not what we wanted to happen. Updraft actually apologized. Looking at her standard 90-degree bow, it seemed that her apology was sincere. Updraft, what do you mean by this? Are you playing us like monkeys? You killed my people, and now you're apologizing to me. Do you think that your apology can save the lives of more than 100 human sword-bearers? Your hands are stained with the blood of humans. This vengeance, we humans will sooner or later. Enough. Shut up. Bifold. If you dare to say another word without my permission, you'll be sent to the hospital immediately. You're not allowed to come out for 3 days. Zhu Wu Dao directly let out an angry rebuke. His words made his wrinkled face turn blue and red. Finally, Wei Ran heaved a long sigh and sat back powerlessly. The pleated sword spirit's heart was filled with hatred, but he also knew that Wu Dao couldn't do anything about it. Humanity was about to enter the difficult sword era. In this era, they really couldn't afford to become enemies with the Freedom Metropolis. Otherwise, humanity's losses would be far greater than the lives of over 100 sword-bearers. It's fine. We can understand the feelings of this Mr. Sword Wielder. If we were in his shoes, if more than 100 of our companions died in the Freedom City, we would feel the same way as this Mr. We would unleash an unbearable rage. Tears said as he turned around and bowed toward the pleated sword spirit. The pleated sword spirit was expressionless. He did not move at all as he accepted the rising current's bow. Your Excellency, Tears, it sounds like you don't want to be enemies with Yuzhong City and the human race, right? Lu Lei asked the most important question. The answer to this question might decide the fate of the entire human race. Of course, the Freedom Metropolis will always remain neutral. This has always been the principle of the Freedom Metropolis. It will never change, Tears replied solemnly. This answer made the three people in the room heave a sigh of relief. If the answer was true, then that was great. Humans wouldn't have to worry about the Freedom Metropolis joining Yuan Ko's side. If the answer was false, then it was fine. At least the Freedom Metropolis wouldn't be ready to fall out with the humans in a short period of time. This would give the humans time to make various preparations. Then, Your Excellency, Tears, can you explain to us why you're here today? You've killed more than 100 human swordbearers. How do you explain that? According to the agreement signed by us humans, Yuan Ko, and the Freedom Metropolis, a battle with more than 100 casualties can be defined as a war. Lu Lei unceremoniously threw these things in front of Tears, as if the humans didn't care about declaring war on the Freedom Metropolis. No, Mr. Swordbearer. According to the agreement, it's only a declaration of war if we kill the other party with our own hands. The one who really killed those humans was Yuan Ko of the Western Demonic Beasts. It has nothing to do with us Freedom Metropolis. At most, we helped them teleport once. This hasn't reached the level of a declaration of war, Tears replied. Is that so? Zhu Wudao looked at the pleated sword spirit. The other party snorted, but didn't say anything. Now I'll let you speak, Zhu Wudao said angrily. Of course, he knew the pleated sword spirit was bickering with him. It was a silent confrontation. I don't know. The pleated sword spirit finally spoke. I can only say that no Freedom Metropolis participated in the battle within my sight. As for the battle outside my sight, I don't know. This sword-bearer is too humble. Your sword lady is the thousand-eyed sword. We don't think we can hide anything under the thousand-eyed sword's gaze. Tears smiled. The pleated sword spirit felt a little awkward. Indeed, the thousand-eyed sword was famous for its vision that covered the entire situation. Very few things could escape the thousand-eyed sword's eyes. Under the thousand-eyed sword's gaze, it seemed like the Freedom Metropolis really hadn't made a move. Sir Tears, even if what you said is true and you Freedom Metropolis didn't make a move, you still helped the Western Demonic Beast Yuan Ko teleport to the vicinity of Fort Yuyang and launch a surprise attack on the fortress. Isn't this your doing? Lu Lei questioned. That's right. We're very sorry about this. It was indeed our doing. Tears bowed slightly. The agreement didn't stipulate that we couldn't help Yuan Ko teleport. Moreover, we were forced to do so. We Freedom Metropolis had no intention of breaking the agreement. Forced to do so? You were forced to do so? Zhu Wudao keenly grasped the main point of Tears' words. If the Freedom Metropolis had been forced to do so by Yuan Ko, it's a long story. We have a very important friend who is currently under the control of the Western Demonic Beasts. They asked us to help them move the demonic beasts away before they would release our friend. Therefore, we had no other choice, Tears said calmly. That's great. That's great. Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao looked at each other. There was actually joy in their eyes. They didn't expect the situation to be completely reversed from the meeting just now. The Freedom Metropolis, who originally thought they were going to start a war with the humans, was actually forced to do so by Yuan Ko's hostage. In this way, not only would the Freedom Metropolis not become enemies with the humans, but they would also be enraged by Yuan Ko's actions. In a fit of anger, it was not impossible for them to completely join the human camp. This way, the humans would have an easier time during the difficult sword era, and they would be able to pass through the entire difficult sword era in a more stable manner. As for the more than 100 sword bearers and 3,000 civilians who had been ambushed, Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao could directly ignore them. Compared to the survival of the humans, even if the death toll was 10 times higher, the humans would still have to grit their teeth and endure it. Everyone, I'm actually not contacting you to explain these things. We don't care what you think of our freedom metropolis. Forgive me for being blunt, but even if our freedom metropolis really made a move, you won't dare to do anything to us before we clearly express our intention to join the Yuan Co camp. Teardrop's words sounded harsh and annoying, but it was the truth. Humans would never push a potential friend to their enemy. Then why did you contact us, Sir Tears? Are you purposely mocking us? Lu Lei's expression stiffened. No, I just hope that you will send someone to Fort Yuyang, Tears said and vanished. As Lei Zi spoke, his figure disappeared, and the scene abruptly turned into a dark and gloomy scene. Only a bonfire could barely light up the entire space. It's them. Seeing this scene, the pleated blade spirit immediately jumped up from his chair. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief. In this dark space, he actually saw dozens of medical pods. There were also a few humans looking at the pleated blade spirit with a mixture of joy and sorrow. Gui Lin Lei, are you guys all right? The pleated blade spirit's eyes welled up with tears. These people were the warriors of the sword-bearers under his command. They were members of the missing list. He thought they were all dead. He didn't expect to see them alive. Sir Pleated Blade, we're fine. We're all fine. We still have more than 30 brothers. They survived too. As long as they come out of the medical pods, they'll be fine again. One of the sword-bearers said with tears in his eyes. It's a pity that most of our sword ladies are either broken or unable to fight anymore. Otherwise, we could have fought our way out. Another sword-bearer said unwillingly. What nonsense are you guys spouting? The outside world is full of Yuan, co-demonic beasts, and their numbers are still increasing. How can you guys escape? Tears mercilessly interrupted these people's fantasies. He then said to Lu Lei and the others, these 30-plus people were saved by us freemen. This is all we can do to make up for our mistakes. We'll do our best to protect them, but the Western demonic beasts have something on us. No one knows when the Western demonic beasts will discover them. Whether we send someone to save them or not, it's up to you. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you guys. The Western demonic beasts are still recruiting. I even saw Loki. You guys should know better than us what this means. That's it. The demonic beasts are stupid, but Loki is very smart. It'll be too dangerous if we continue contacting him. If you want to send someone to save them, you can come to these coordinates. We'll send someone to meet you. Chapter 367. My lord, let me go. After the call ended, Hundredfolds immediately stood up and used his blood-stained hand to pat his blood-stained chest. After seeing that there were still more than 30 surviving sword-bearers, Hundredfolds could not suppress the huge excitement in his heart at all, and the wound that had just healed with great difficulty burst open again. Sit down. Why are you so excited? Do you want to die? Zhu Wudao snorted coldly and asked, You go? Are your injuries healed? Have you repaired your thousand-eye sword? Have you recovered all the sword elements in your body? Zhu Wudao's 3 consecutive questions forced the pleated sword spirit back down. Indeed, if he wanted to save people now, he would be courting death. I'll go, Lu Lei said faintly. This old bag of bones hasn't fought in a long time. It's a good time to get some exercise. You're not allowed to go either. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wudao rebutted Lu Lei again. The freelancer made it very clear that Loki is already there. There's no guarantee that other gods from the Western Pantheon won't appear. I don't want to lose one of the only 2 immortal sword-level sword-bearers in Yuzhong City just for the sake of 30 ancient sword and treasure sword-bearers. It's just Loki. Even if he's an Ian-level Yuan Ko, I'm confident that I can suppress him. Lu Lei frowned. His reputation as Cloudy Sky Sword Immortal wasn't just for show. He had fought for it. The number of universe-level and Ian-level Yuan Ko that had died in Lu Lei's hands had reached a total of 4. This was a very impressive achievement among all the immortal sword-level sword-bearers. What if it's not just Loki? If Thunder God Thor, War God Tyr, or even the 3 goddesses of fate come? Let me ask you, can one person defeat them? Zhu Wudao questioned Lu Lei again. How is that possible? Why would they all appear in Fort Yuyang? If they really came, wouldn't that mean that they're declaring war on Yuzhong City? At this point, Lu Lei's voice paused. You're saying that they're going to declare war on us? A great invasion is coming? Although I'm not sure, from what Updraft said just now, the war is about to begin. The great invasion is coming again. The flesh on Zhu Wudao's face was squeezed together, forming many wrinkles. Otherwise, why would the Western divine system, whose territory is tens of thousands of kilometers away from us, cross such a long distance to attack our Yuyang fortress? They even took the risk of becoming enemies with the free metropolis and forced the perverted sunspot to help them teleport? More importantly, Tier of Updraft said that the troops in Fort Yiyang are still increasing. If this isn't to deal with the entire Yuzhong city, then what is it for? That's not necessarily true. Maybe the freemen are lying to us. They're just putting on an act. The pleated sword spirit said, unconvinced. If they're just fooling us, it'll be even worse. I believe that the 30 sword-bearers must be surrounded by an inescapable net, waiting for us to stupidly send out reinforcements to rescue them. Zhu Wudao swung his hand, showing his determination. Sacrificing the lives of 6 people to save 1 person is something only idiotic Americans would do. I, Sword Immortal Baiju, will never do such a thing in my lifetime. The sacrifice of 6 people to save 1 person that Zhu Wudao was referring to was the movie Saving Private Ryan from before the Great Apocalypse. This CD, which was found in the ruins, became a precious record for humans to understand the era before the Great Apocalypse. However, at that time, the longevity Jindi had given the movie its harshest criticism. Sacrificing 6 people for 1 person is the stupidest trade in the world. If anyone dares to do such a trade in the future, he or she will be a traitor to humanity. Just because of that one sentence from the Sword Emperor Longevity, the story of this movie had become the target of collective criticism from all of humanity. Indeed, 6 sword-bearers for 1 sword-bearer. Human sword-bearers were not like soldiers on the battlefield. Soldiers only needed to issue a mobilization order to continuously mobilize millions of people, which were equivalent to consumables. However, the sword-bearers were too precious. Every death of a sword-bearer meant 1 less precious force. Not to mention 6 for 1, even 6 for 5 was impossible. The fate of Yuzhong City is in our hands this time. I must ensure that all our forces are concentrated in Yuzhong City. Only by doing so can we protect Yuzhong City. As for those sword-bearers who are waiting for our rescue, I can only apologize to them. Their heroic deeds will be engraved on stone tablets in the future. Zhu Wudao's words were very serious and ruthless. The lives of more than 30 sword-bearers were completely sacrificed because of his words. Hee, what a benevolent chairman of the Sword Committee. My brothers haven't even died yet, but you've already begun to prepare stone tablets for them. To have such a chairman of the Sword Committee, I, the pleated sword, am truly blessed. The pleated sword spirit's words were very calm, but the suppressed anger within could not be hidden from anyone. All right, Lord Baiju, I can understand that you're doing this for Yuzhong City. Please understand me as well. Even if I'm alone, I'll save my brothers. After saying that, the pleated sword spirit turned around and left the conference room to save his brothers. Brainless fool. Zhu Wudao's face darkened. A solid sword aura shot out from his body and turned into chains that instantly bound the pleated sword spirit's body. The pleated sword spirit lost his balance and fell to the ground, splattering blood all over the floor. Let me go. Let me go. The pleated sword spirit struggled with all his might. However, he was seriously injured and the sword essence in his body had been depleted. He could not resist Zhu Wudao's imprisonment at all. Guards, bring the pleated sword spirit to the hospital and give him 10 times the sedative. Before I give the order, let him lie in the medical chamber and sleep forever. Do you understand? Zhu Wudao said to his 2 subordinates who had walked in. The 2 subordinates saluted, lifted the struggling pleated sword spirit, and left the conference room. Old man, are you dissatisfied with how I've dealt with him? Lulei had witnessed the entire process of how Zhu Wudao dealt with the pleated sword spirit. There was a faint smile on his face, or perhaps it was a mocking smile, or a bitter smile, or a sad smile. No, if I were you, I would have done the same. Liu Lei shook his head. I'm just a little touched. Since when did Yuzhong City fall to the point where even its own people can't save them? If the Terminator Jindy was still alive, Yuzhong City would have gone to save these 30 poor fellows, even if they had to sacrifice everything they had. The Terminator Jindy was the previous Jindy born in Yuzhong City. When Liu Lei was still a 14-year-old child, the Terminator Jindy had already ascended to immortality. Since then, there had been no Jindy in Yuzhong City for more than 70 years. If I were Jindy, I could take back the entire Yang fortress all by myself. I wouldn't give up on those children. Zhu Wudao smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, this is just an if. Yuzhong City may be facing a life-and-death situation. I can't act on impulse. I have to remain absolutely calm. Yes, it's because of your calmness that I took the initiative to give up when I was fighting for the position of the Sword Committee chairman. I knew that I would never have your calmness, Liu Lei said with a face full of memories. Those days were so nostalgic. If I could, I would rather be like you and stay in the Sword Pavilion. I don't want to be tortured by these painful things for the rest of my life. Zhu Wudao let out a long sigh. I'm going to draft an order. Come along. You decide. I have no objections, Liu Lei said. Bat, I'm going to issue the Sword Committee Chairman's order. You're responsible for recording it. Bat understands. Yuzhong City Chairman's Order Number 869 is being recorded. Please announce the order, an electronic voice said in the room. Pass down my order. The entire Yuzhong City is on red alert. Abandon all the beacon towers outside the absolute safety zone. Gather the sword bearers who leave the beacon towers to the large fortress with a quantum transmission array to monitor the surroundings of Yuzhong City. Withdraw all the people in the Miling mountain range. Sword bearers, ordinary people, and miners all retreat to Yuzhong City. Leave a small team to guard the quantum transmission array. Once there is any danger, this team can immediately retreat to Yuzhong City without asking for permission. All the equipment that can be taken away will be taken away, and those that can't be taken away will be left there. If it's destroyed, then so be it. We can rebuild it in the future. Oh, by the way, the same goes for the sword bearers in the fortress. Once they discover that Yuan Ko is launching a large-scale attack and the fortress can't defend, immediately retreat through the quantum transmission array without asking for permission. Work outside the absolute safety zone, as usual, but everyone must maintain a smooth communication channel. You are not allowed to leave the area within 10 kilometers of your camp. Once you receive the warning of Yuan Ko's attack, immediately retreat. Immediately retreat by car back to Yuzhong City. Send out all the large heavy-duty vehicles to transport all the various resources we have stored outside the city back to Yuzhong City. The preparations for this attack are much greater than the previous two. This time, it is very likely to become a tug-of-war. We must ensure that the city has enough resources to withstand it. Immediately start a news control. News of the attack must only be known by the higher-ups. We must strictly keep it a secret from the civilians. We cannot let the city fall into chaos. Oh no, our actions are too obvious. There are many strange people among the civilians. They will not let go of this opportunity to create chaos. Still, tell them that the attack is imminent, but this is a completely controllable attack. Yuzhong City is absolutely safe. Also, send out a recall order. Immediately recall all the sword bearers who are adventuring outside. Tell them not to go in the direction of Yiyang. That place is already under Yuan Ko's control. Tell them to take a detour and return to Yuzhong City from the southeast. Send a distress signal to the other 7 cities, especially Yanjing City. Yuzhong City is finished. It's best to let them send their own immortal sword bearers over to support us. Then, contact Wu Zhang Shifang alone. Tell him that he can return the favor now. Note that the Eagle Cat Sword Spirits team does not need to return. Finally, reopen all the underground shelters. Start cleaning up the shelter sanitation. Check the shelter's ventilation and nutrient storage. It's been 12 years. It's time to reopen the shelters again. Chapter 368. Chanyang Mountain was located in Shihe County, Longnan City, Gansu Province before the Great Calamity. After the Great Calamity, Chanyang Mountain was under the jurisdiction of Yuzhong City, but it didn't really matter. It was only a nominal jurisdiction. When Yinjing City had just been established and Yuzhong City was still nowhere to be seen, Yinjing City had jurisdiction over the vast territories of Huaxia, Fusang, Central Asia, Siberia, Southeast Asia, India, and Australia. But in fact, it was already difficult for Yinjing City to control the area within a few hundred kilometers around it. Those territories were only controlled in name. When Yuzhong City was established, Zhetian Jindi went to the Sword Committee of Yinjing City to discuss the issue of territory. Chunshuang Jindi drew a line along the central axis of Huaxia and gave the area south of the line to Yuzhong City. He even asked Zhetian Jindi if it was enough. If it wasn't enough, he could also give Siberia to Zhetian Jindi. All in all, there was no dispute between the base cities regarding the nominal territory. They couldn't even control the land around their own cities, let alone territories thousands of kilometers away. After traveling along the broken highway for 4 days, Guhan's hoverbus finally arrived near Chanyang Mountain. They met some Yuan-ko along the way, and they were all assigned to Gahan, Song Yifei, and Ku Rakin as missions. In less than 10 minutes, they were all killed by Gahan and the others. They also met a team of sword-bearers who were on an adventure. They were a team of sword-bearers from Yinjing City. There were 25 people in total, and they had been on an adventure for almost half a year. After chatting with them, they learned that their goal was to destroy a stronghold of the Martyr's Palace. It was said that there was a natural sword lady left in Yuan Ko's hands in that stronghold. They wanted to take the sword lady back. However, the team had already lost 5 sword bearers before they could find the stronghold. Therefore, the team leader already had the intention to retreat. He planned to return to Yinjing City after eliminating the Yuan Ko in the area. After that, Gahan didn't meet any sword bearers anymore. He didn't meet any of them even when he reached his destination. Brother Tianyuan, long time no see. Seeing Su Tanyuan jump down from the tree, Gahan couldn't help but size up this son of an aristocratic family that he hadn't seen for almost 2 weeks. The other party's clothes were neat and tidy, and his face was glowing. He did not look like a guy who had been hiding in the jungle for 2 weeks. However, this was not strange. As long as Su Tianyuan did not lose his dimensional pocket, he would never lack tools to take care of himself. Brother Gahan, I didn't expect to see you here. Ling didn't choose the wrong person. Su Tianyuan cupped his fist and smiled at Gahan. Ling? Song Yifei's ears twitched. This name sounded like a girl's name. Could it be that there was something that Song Yifei did not know? Thinking about it carefully, Song Yifei really did not know about the existence of Liu Yinling. There were a few times when he met with Gahan, but Liu Yinling was not by Gahan's side. Although Zhu Wudao knew something about Gahan and Liu Yinling, he would not tell Song Yifei about it. Therefore, this was the first time that Song Yifei heard the name Ling. Oh, you don't know, but Ling is Mr. Gahan's girlfriend. Ling was the one who discovered the trial field. However, Ling was trapped in the trial field, and Brother Gahan rushed here to save Ling. This is really touching. Su Tianyuan looked like he was touched. You have a girlfriend. Song Yifei suddenly raised his voice by several pitches. Guhan, you're good. You hit it well. Congratulations. Yu Wenjun swore that Song Yifei wasn't moved at all. That's right. I'm here to save Linlin. Gahan's answer was clever. He only said that he was there to save Liu Yinling, but he did not answer the crucial question of whether Liu Yinling was his girlfriend. All right, you ungrateful little guy. Now is not the time for you to be jealous. The eagle cat sword spirit couldn't stand it anymore. The sword wielder who couldn't stand being abused directly defined Song Yifei as someone who was jealous. Instantly, Song Yifei shut his mouth. He didn't want to talk about Linlin anymore. What a joke, who was jealous? Su Tianyuan, right? The descendant of the Confucian family. The spirit of the eagle cat nodded. Let me ask you, how is the situation? Have the people from the other base cities arrived? The team from Yinjing has arrived. They are resting in the temporary camp. As for the other base cities, there is no news yet Su Tianyuan answered politely. He is the descendant of the Confucian family. Yi Wenjun, who was standing behind Guhan, carefully sized up Su Tianyuan and couldn't help but feel a sense of shame in her heart. Yi Wenjun was also a descendant of the Jindi family. He was also the descendant of the invincible Zhe Jindi, who had established the Yuzhong base city. Strictly speaking, Yi Wenjun's bloodline was nobler than Su Tianyuan's. At the very least, Confucian Jindi would never be able to defeat Zhe Jindi. Besides, Confucian Jindi did not leave behind a base city that could bring fortune to the world. While Yi Wenjun was thinking about these things, Su Tianyuan and the spirit of the eagle cat had finished their conversation. Su Tianyuan turned around, saluted the others in a graceful manner, and then introduced himself with a smile. I am Su Tianyuan, the descendant of the Confucian family. It is my pleasure to meet the geniuses and young heroes of Yuzhong City. I wonder if I would be honored to make friends with you all. As expected of a descendant of the Confucian family, every word and action was well-mannered. Ku Rakin, nice to meet you. Ku Rakin was the first to speak. After introducing himself, this Chinibyu teenager turned his nose up in the air and ignored Su Tianyuan, as if Su Tianyuan was some insignificant nobody. Oh, it is the son of Sword Immortal Baiju. My apologies, Su Tianyuan said politely and ignored Ku Rakin. Although the son of a Sword Immortal sounded impressive, it was nothing compared to his status as the descendant of the Confucian family. Once Sword Immortal Baiju passed away, Ku Rakin would be nothing to him. Then, Su Tianyuan looked at Guhan. Guhan smiled and didn't say anything. He and Su Tianyuan already knew each other, so there was nothing for him to introduce. Then, Song Yifei took the initiative to speak. She imitated Su Tianyuan and cupped her fists. Song Yifei, I used to be a doctor. Recently, I got lucky and became a sword wielder. I'm ashamed that I don't have much to show. So it's Miss Yifei. Miss Yifei, don't belittle yourself. I can sense an unusual power from Miss Yifei. Miss Yifei will definitely be able to gain something in the trial field. After Song Yifei finished her self-introduction, only Yi Wenjun was left. Yi Wenjun took a deep breath and made a gesture that looked a bit strange, but naturally gave off a noble and elegant aura of a complex etiquette. I am Yuzhong City's Shrouding Heaven family's 16th generation descendant, Yi Wenjun. May I ask how the descendant of the Confucian family is doing? It seemed like Yi Wenjun had brought out the etiquette of the Jindi family. In a certain era, some of the family heads of the Jindi family felt good about themselves. In order to highlight their status as part of the Jindi family, they came up with a set of etiquette for the Jindi family to interact with each other. Then, this set of etiquette quickly spread among all the Jindi families. Back then, the Shrouding Heaven family was the most proactive one. After losing their strength, they could only rely on these complicated etiquettes to show their status as part of the Jindi family. However, it was worth mentioning that the Lunyan family had never cared about these etiquettes. Their descendants had always done whatever they wanted, and they deeply hated etiquette. It was said that one family head privately said that only those rotten families would care about these meaningless etiquettes. Because of their deep relationship with the Lunyan family, the Confucian family had also been influenced by the Lunyan family. They also didn't care about this etiquette. Although Su Tianyuan knew about these etiquettes and had learned some of them, he had basically forgotten most of them. If you asked him to use the standard etiquette to reply to Yi Wenjun's etiquette, then sorry, Su Tianyuan couldn't do it. Su Tianyuan took the initiative to grab Yi Wenjun's hand and excitedly said, I didn't expect to meet the descendant of the Shrouding Heaven family here. This is truly surprising. The Shrouding Heaven family hasn't interacted with other families in over 200 years. I didn't expect to meet you today. It's truly my honor. Very good. This way, I won't have to be embarrassed about not knowing etiquette. Su Tianyuan did it because he was excited. But then again, the Shrouding Heaven family really hadn't appeared in the various family gatherings and conferences for a long time. The reason was very simple. They couldn't afford to lose face. Back then, the Heaven Shrouding family's laughable fight for the position of family leader had caused quite a commotion, and all of the Sword Emperor families knew about it. As such, the heaven-shrouding family became the laughingstock of the circle, and the elders of the family used it to educate the younger generation. There was a saying that went, "Families can't cover the sky too much." Don't misunderstand, this wasn't to criticize the families for being overbearing. It was to educate their descendants that they couldn't live like the shrouding heaven family. Adding on the fact that the shrouding heaven family didn't have a single famed sword bearer. They didn't have the face to attend any conferences. A few generations of family heads were thick-skinned and wanted to attend the conference to get some benefits. In the end, they were stopped by Yuzhong City. What a joke. If other families want to lose face, then so be it. If the founder of Yuzhong City, the descendant of the shrouding heaven Jinni family, lost face, then the entire Yuzhong City would lose face. Therefore, it was true that the various families hadn't seen the descendant of the shrouding heaven family for over 200 years. If Yi Wenjun hadn't mentioned it, Su Tianyuan would have almost forgotten about the existence of the shrouding heaven family. Chapter 369. Why am I so unlucky? Xiaoya, who was lying on when Mei Yun's bed, kept complaining. It wasn't easy for her to convince Guohua to help her fake a fall from a building and break her legs. She finally succeeded in living in Gahan's house, but she didn't expect that on the morning she moved in, Gahan would bring all the family members except for her mother out for a mission. This made Long Xiaoya, who was filled with joy and wanted to become a beautiful canary, extremely depressed and regretful. If she had known that this would happen, she wouldn't have gone to create the accident. In order to deceive when Mei Yun and Gahan, she really jumped from the third floor, but she wrapped a thick layer of sponge on her head to prevent it from breaking. The pain brought by the fracture was also worth it. Heaven had pity on her. She, Xiaoya, had put in a lot of effort for this plan. In the end, she was happy for nothing and broke both her legs. There was nothing more tragic than this in the world. Thinking of this, Long Xiaoya couldn't help but cry silently. What was this? Why'd all kinds of bad things happen to me? Forget it. I'll just watch the television. Since the main benefits were gone, the remaining secondary benefits couldn't be lost. This house was really not bad. After sleeping in Guogua's house for a month and smelling the stench for a month, it wasn't easy to live in such a good environment. No matter what, she had to enjoy it to the fullest, especially the television. At Guogua's place, she could only watch the television through her personal terminal. This wasn't a comfortable thing, especially when the soundproofing of the hundreds of capsules were all watching the television through the personal terminal. The sound of hundreds of channels converging together was enough to make anyone lose interest in watching the television. Therefore, to be able to watch her favorite television in a spacious, quiet, and comfortable room was the only thing that could make Xiaoya, who had broken both her legs, feel happy. However, it seemed that some people didn't want Xiaoya to be happy. Xiaoya, who was engrossed in watching the latest popular TV series, Sword Immortal Falls in Love with Me, suddenly noticed that the TV screen shook and then it entered a state of static. In the upper right corner of the screen, there was a prompt indicating that some signal was switching. Seriously, 1,000 years had passed. Why was there still nothing but static when there was no signal on the television? It seemed that this was the suggestion of the Historical Research Committee, indicating that they wanted to restore history. The snowflakes were full of beauty, and it was easier for people to be intoxicated. It felt very powerful. Damn it, I haven't even seen how green tea hooked up with Lord Celestial Sword and Fairy. Why is she gone? Xiaoya muttered in dissatisfaction. She had wanted to learn the female lead's flirting skills, but now she couldn't. By the way, there was a rumor on the internet that the script of this phenomenal TV series with a viewership rating of 7% was originally called His Majesty Jinni Falls in Love with Me. Unfortunately, it was rejected by the SARFT. The reason was very righteous. After the apocalypse, Jinni is not allowed to fall in love with someone other than his first wife. But soon, the screen returned to normal, but the original TV drama turned into a studio. A dignified and beautiful famous female host faced the camera solemnly with a serious expression. F***CK. Who wants to watch the news? I want to change the channel. A young girl like Xiaoya naturally had no interest in news programs. She decisively used the remote control to change the channel, only to find that the other channel was broadcasting the same news. Xiaoya couldn't believe it. She quickly changed the channel, only to find that the television seemed to be dominated by this news. No matter which channel it was broadcasting the female host's image. I'm not watching anymore. That's good enough, right? Xiaoya was about to turn off the television, cover her head in anger, and sleep. But the next moment, her hand that was holding the remote control loosened. Latest news. The identity of the shameful Yuan Ko who launched the sneak attack on our Fort Yiyang has been confirmed. He is Yuan Ko from the Western Beast Camp. These despicable Yuan Ko didn't have the courage to attack our great, brave, and fearless swordsman from the front. He only dared to launch a sneak attack on us from behind. Caught off guard, although the brave swordsmen tried their best to resist, they were unable to defend against the despicable sneak attack. As a result, the Fort Yiyang fell. Fortunately, most of our sword bearers have returned safely. More than 100 sword bearers have left their lives on that hot-blooded land forever, composing an impassioned heroic hymn. Today, the Council and the Sword Committee jointly made an announcement to inform our dear audience, civilians, and citizens. After the swordsmen risked their lives to investigate, they discovered that the number of Yuan Ko in the Fort Yiyang is increasing. It is very likely that they will launch a despicable attack on Yuzhong City. Everyone, don't get too excited. The chairman of the Sword Committee, Sword Immortal Jiu Wu Dao, told the reporters that according to the information, the scale of this attack is expected to be smaller than the previous ones. Regardless of whether it is the number of Yuan Ko or the level of Yuan Ko, they have always ranked at the bottom of the list. Under the leadership of Sword Immortal Jiu Wu Dao, the Sword Committee, and the Council, Yuzhong City has the confidence, strength, and willpower to block this attack outside the dimensional barrier. Yuzhong City's defenses will not be breached. Everyone can rest assured and stay at home, waiting for news of victory. During this time, if someone tries to create trouble, deceive the public, and cause chaos. Furthermore, if they take the opportunity to rob, rape, smash, loot, and burn, they will be seeking their own deaths. The Council has already issued several opinions on cracking down on violent crimes this morning, which clearly states that once violent crimes such as vandalism, robbery, and arson are found, the police have the right to immediately open fire and kill the criminal. Please do not take chances. Also, as a precaution, all the shelters have been opened and tidied up. If there is an accident, please use the emergency slides to enter the shelters in an orderly manner. Now, we will broadcast the list of the dead or missing sword bearers and commoners in the Yiyang Fortress. If you have family or loved ones in the Yiyang Fortress, you can check the list for the latest news. You can also log on to our website to make inquiries. Mom, come take a look. Something big has happened. Xiaoya called out loudly. Soon, when Maiden, who was wearing an apron, came into the room, she asked anxiously, What's wrong, Xiaoya? What happened? Did you hit your foot on something just now? What a pitiful parent. When Maiden's thoughts were all on Xiaoya's legs. No, my legs are fine. It's news, it's news. Xiaoya immediately told Wen Meiyun everything that had just been reported on the news. Wen Meiyun's beautiful face paled in fright. These two really hadn't gone out for a whole day. Whenever they went out, they would hear everyone discussing the news of Fort Yiyang's fall. What should we do, Xiaoya? The big attack is coming again. Xiaoya, Mom will definitely protect you. Wen Meiyun said incoherently. Mom, what are you worried about? We are in the core area. Even if the big attack comes, it will be the people in the common areas who are unlucky. What does it have to do with our core area? Our core area is protected by 2 layers of dimensional barriers. In history, the core area has only been breached once. We are 95% safe. What are you afraid of? That's right. Mom and Xiaoya are already in the core area. When Meiyun cried tears of joy. That's great. Xiaoya, we are in the core area. Mom, don't cry. Although we are in the core area now, things are still uncertain. You told me before that Sir Gahan was going to Gansu province. Our teacher said that if he wanted to go to the west, he would definitely pass by the Yiyang Fortress. It seems like Mr. Gahan left 3 days ago. Maybe he was in the Yang fort yesterday. Quickly check if Mr. Gahan is in a list of casualties. Master Gahan might be inside Fort Yang. When Mayun's smile didn't last for more than a few seconds before she started to cry again. Why is it like this? Lord Gahan was such a good person. He treated her so well. How could he be in Yang stronghold? If he leaves, what are we going to do? That's why I said, Mother, quickly check if Lord Gahan's name is on that list. Go to the council's official website. There's a list there. Computer. But Xiaoya, Mommy doesn't know how to use a computer. Well, Wen Meiyun was also a rare animal in the world. In this era where every family had a computer and everyone had been surfing the internet since young, Wen Meiyun was a rare animal in the world. In this era, there was actually someone like Wen Meiyun who didn't know how to surf the internet, even though she was in her 30s. It's okay. Xiaoya knows how to surf the internet. Mommy, carry Xiaoya to Lord Guhan's computer. Xiaoya will go to the website and check, Xiaoya said anxiously. Go to Lord Gahan's computer? When Meiyun hesitated. But Lord Gahan said that he doesn't allow us to touch his computer. Mom, what time is it? We are worried about Lord Guhan. Even if Lord Gahan finds out, he won't be angry with us. Mommy, quickly carry me there. Under Xiaoya's constant persuasion, when Meiyun, who was worried about Gahan's safety, couldn't convince Xiaoya in the end. She brought Xiaoya to Gahan's room and turned on Gahan's computer to access the council's official website. Xiaoya quickly downloaded the name list from the computer. Then, when Meiyun looked through the names one by one, after confirming that Gahan's name wasn't on the list of missing or dead swordsmen, she heaved a sigh of relief. That's great. Mommy, Lord Gahan is fine. Xiaoya stuck close to her mom's ear and said while biting her mom's ear, Mom, watching TV is so boring. Can you let Xiaoya go online for a while? Xiaoya won't do anything else. I'll just go on my QQ and chat with my classmates for a while. You don't know, when Xiaoya's classmates heard that Xiaoya was injured, they were all very concerned about her and left many messages on QQ. If Xiaoya didn't reply to them, how bad would that be? How could Xiaoya go to school with them in the future and get along with them? Not getting along well with her classmates. When Meiyun couldn't reject this reason at all. A mother definitely wouldn't want her daughter to be isolated in school. She could only nod and promise Xiaoya that she could only surf the internet for half an hour at most. Don't worry, Mommy. I don't need half an hour. 20 minutes will be enough. Seeing when Meiyun leave Gahan's room, Xiaoya smiled as if her scheme had succeeded. She didn't know what she was planning in her heart. Chapter 370. In a small temporary camp, Gahan and the others met the people of Yinjing City who had arrived earlier. There were a lot of sword-bearers from Yinjing City, about a dozen of them. Most of them were good-looking, arrogant, and modest on the surface, but actually disdainful. When they saw that Yuzhong City had only sent 4 little cats and puppies, they couldn't help but begin to despise them. They muttered in their hearts, sure enough, Yuzhong City has declined and can't produce any talents. The future of mankind still depends on us, Yinjing City, and so on. You can't blame these sword-bearers for thinking like this, because since ancient times, except for a few periods, the strongest fighting force of mankind has always come from Yinjing City. For example, now, Hao Yinjindi of Yinjing City was the cornerstone of suppressing the entire human world. Without Hao Yinjindi, only Long Shi Jindi was left, and the days of mankind would instantly become precarious. Eagle Cat, long time no see. After so many years, your appearance still hasn't changed. From the camp came a middle-aged man with a majestic gait. Although this man was nearly middle-aged, his skin was still tight and smooth, like that of a young man. In other words, he looked like a young man in his 20s. However, he had an extraordinary aura about him, one that looked down on the world with disdain. To be able to have such an aura, he had to be at least a spirit sword level sword wielder like the Eagle Cat sword spirit. And among all the spirit sword bearers in this generation, none of them was younger than 30 years old. Mystery me, it's actually you. When Eagle Cat saw the man clearly, he was shocked. He didn't expect that the leader of Yinjing City was actually Mystery Me sword spirit. I don't know if everyone still remembers Mystery Me Sword Spirit, the one who made the dean of Yuzhong University, Tiger Roar Sword Spirit, admit defeat and made the outstanding Dragon Spring Sword Spirit feel ashamed of his inferiority. He is known as the #1 Sword Master, Mystery Me Sword Spirit. Is Mystery Me Sword Spirit the most powerful Sword Master? Mystery Me Sword Spirit. Gahan was also taken aback. For a long time, if Gahan was most concerned about the Spirit Sword level sword holder, then it must be the Confusion Sword Spirit. As a fellow Sword Master, the Chaos Sword Spirit had defeated almost all the Sword Masters who had been issued a Sword Master certificate by the Sword Master Association. Even the 3 Immortal Sword Masters were no match for the Chaos Sword Spirit in a competition of pure sword techniques. Therefore, the Chaos Sword Spirit was undoubtedly the strongest among the Sword Masters. At the same time, Huomi was also the strongest among all the Spirit Sword tier sword bearers, and was known as the strongest candidate for the next Sword Immortal. Gahan had always wanted to compete with the Confusion Sword Spirit in swordsmanship. He wanted to see where the limits of his swordsmanship were and whether he could compete with the #1 swordsman in the world. However, given Gahan's status back then, it was impossible for him to even glance at the sword spirit from afar, let alone compete with it. Originally, Gahan thought that he would only have the opportunity to see the Confusion Sword Spirit in the 8 Academy Assembly. Unexpectedly, he met the Confusion Sword Spirit in advance in this Changyang Mountain. In addition to Gahan, the most excited one was Ku Rakin. In other words, Ku Rakin should be more excited than Gahan. Ku Rakin had been holding the hilt of the sword in his hand, and his eyes were full of hunger. Well, it was indeed the feeling of hunger. In addition, Song Yifei and Yi Wenjun did not seem so excited. They were not sword masters, and they were not interested in the title of the #1 sword master of the Confusion Sword Spirit. At most, they were a little excited about the title of the #1 Spirit Sword level sword holder. Mystery Me, why are you here? Although the matter of Changyang Mountain is very important, there is no need for Yinjing City to send you here, right? The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit said confusedly. It could be seen that the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit respected the Confusion Sword Spirit very much, which was due to the absolute strength of the Confusion Sword Spirit. No, Eagle Cat, you are wrong. Since when can Yinjing City command me? The Confusion Sword Spirit smiled slightly. This is what I want to come here. The fame of the Heaven-Shrouding Sword Emperor has left Huomi in awe. To be able to see the ruins of the Heaven-Shrouding Sword Emperor, no matter how small the matter is, Huomi will definitely not miss it. All the Spirit Sword level sword holders knew that the Confusion Sword Spirit was a fan of Zhetian Jindi and admired Zhetian Jindi very much. Once, she almost changed swordsmanship and became a sword holder belonging to Yuzhong City. However, because of the strong opposition of the Confusion Sword Spirit's family in Yinjing City, this idea was never achieved. It was said that the Confusion Sword Spirit had collected thousands of items used by Zhetian Jindi, traces left behind, manuscripts, and so on. There were also all kinds of books, information, videos, biographies, and so on. In short, the Confusion Sword Spirit could be said to be the strongest die-hard fan of Zhetian Jindi. It was said that the reason why he was determined to become the Sword Master was because he was influenced by Zhetian Jindi's identity. Then, his talent exploded, and he became the strongest Sword Master. You still haven't changed. You still admire Zhetian Jindi so much. To be honest, I don't think your swordsmanship is inferior to Zhetian Jindi. The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit said sincerely. He had once fought side by side with the Confusion Sword Spirit and had seen the Confusion Sword Spirit fight with his own eyes. He also admired the Confusion Sword Spirit's outstanding swordsmanship. He really felt that there was no one in this world who had better swordsmanship than the Confusion Sword Spirit. Eagle Cat, you're wrong. Compared to Zhetian Jindi, my swordsmanship is like comparing the stars to the moon. It's not even worth mentioning. The Confusion Sword Spirit shook his head. His eyes were filled with admiration for Zhetian Jindi. Yi Wenjun, who stood beside Yi Wenjun, was very touched. The Heaven-Shrouding Sword Emperor was Yi Wenjun's ancestor. Yi Wenjun's favorable impression of the mystic sword spirit instantly increased by several dozen points when she heard the extremely powerful mystic sword spirit worship its ancestor. Zhetian Jindi was something that happened 700 years ago. Who knows what happened 700 years ago? The Eagle Cat sword spirit still maintained his opinion. He didn't think that the confusion sword spirit swordsmanship was inferior to Zhetian Jindi. You're wrong, Eagle Cat. Let's not talk about Zhetian Jindi from 700 years ago. Even now, he still has swordsmanship that the confusion sword spirit, can't defeat. The confusion sword spirit smiled bitterly. Then, he revealed a shocking piece of news. The confusion sword spirit had been defeated, and defeated by pure swordsmanship. You lost. The Eagle Cat sword spirit asked in disbelief. I lost. The Bumi sword spirit replied with a nod. He added, in pure swordsmanship, we both fought with wooden swords. I lost completely. I accept my defeat. The Eagle Cat sword spirit was silent for a long time. Was it a human or Yuan Ko who defeated you? What was his name? It was Yuan Ko. The confusion sword spirit's flesh trembled. That day I went to the ancient battlefield in the Alps. I met a green-robed Yuan Ko. He was dressed in ancient clothes and had a sage-like demeanor. He must be Yuan Ko from the Eastern Celestial Court. Later on, when I sparred with him in swordsmanship, I didn't even last more than 100 moves before I lost. In terms of swordsmanship alone, I'm afraid that even 5 of me added together wouldn't be able to match up to him. To be able to defeat you within 100 moves, confusion sword spirit, you must be joking. The Eagle Cat sword spirit was completely dumbfounded. If the confusion sword spirit couldn't last 100 moves, then wouldn't he be finished in 10 moves? You know, Eagle Cat, I never joke. The confusion sword spirit said seriously. But the strange thing is, I looked up all the information on Yuan Ko, but I couldn't find any information on this Yuan Ko. I suspect that he might be the Yuan Ko who came to this world through the dimensional rift recently. His strength is at least at the universe-class Yuan Ko. He might even be a universe-class Yuan Ko. Humans are in an even more dangerous situation. What's this Yuan Ko's name? Let me see if there's any information on this person in our Yuzhong City's database. The Eagle Cat sword spirit said immediately. The addition of a universe-class Yuan Ko to Yuan Ko's camp was a major matter that had to be reported to the Sword Council. After he defeated me, he disappeared and didn't leave his name. However, I found this on the ground. The confusion sword spirit took out a palm-sized green flower from the dimensional space. What is this? It looks like a lotus flower, but is there a green one in a lotus flower? The Eagle Cat sword spirit bent down and carefully observed the green lotus flower in the confusion sword spirit's hand. Unbeknownst to it, Gahan had become very excited. A green lotus flower. Wasn't it the green lotus in short? Upon seeing this green lotus, Gohan naturally thought of his father and the green lotus sword immortal that I Ching had mentioned. A green lotus flower, an expert swordsman, an outstanding swordsman, and a Yuan Yin that could never die. All of these factors combined together indicated that the Yuan Yin that left behind this green lotus flower was very likely the green lotus sword immortal that Gohan was looking for. Gohan didn't care about the difference in status between him and the confusion sword spirit. He wanted to directly ask where he met the owner of this green lotus flower. However, before Gohan could speak, Yi Wenjun spoke first. I know. I remember now. Lord Huomi, it's very likely that the person you met was the green lotus sword fairy mentioned by our ancestor. Yi Wenjun said excitedly. Finally, there was a topic that he could interrupt. If he could help the confusion sword spirit, then the revival of the Yi family would be even easier. Your ancestor has seen this Yuan Ko. As expected, the confusion sword spirit was completely captivated by Yi Wenjun's words. Gohan also wisely kept his mouth shut. He didn't expect Yi Wenjun to know about the green lotus sword immortal. Our ancestor and her retainer once said that in this world, when it comes to swordsmanship, there are 3.5 people that she can't beat. Yi Wenjun spoke with great familiarity. The retainer he mentioned was Uncle Huang's ancestor, and this conversation was naturally between Jitian Jindi and Uncle Huang. That was why such important information wasn't left in the Yi family's archives. Instead, it was passed down by the Huang family's descendants. In the end, Uncle Huang told it to Yi Wenjun as a bedtime story. Among these 3.5 people, the other half is the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. The ancestor said that the Green Lotus Sword Immortal's sword art is a sword art that only the immortals of poetry can comprehend and use. The poems of poets have no limits, and the Green Lotus Sword Immortal's sword art also has no limits. Even the Milky Way of the 9 heavens can be split apart by his sword. Chapter 371. Splitting the Milky Way in one sword. Even a master like the mystic sword spirit couldn't help but click his tongue when he heard Yi Wenjun's words. This little guy's ancestor was so powerful, he could actually split the Milky Way in two. Oh no, it was the Green Lotus Sword Immortal who could split the Milky Way in one sword. Kid, who is your ancestor? You talk big, and only 3.5 people in the world are better at swordsmanship than him. Does your ancestor think he's the heaven-covering Jindi? Behind the mystic sword spirit, a disciple from an aristocratic family mocked. Although his mouth was foul, his eyes were very sharp. He could tell at a glance that Yi Wenjun didn't have any strength. His steps were light, his head was heavy, and his feet were light. Even the Sword Maiden was the most common man-made Sword Maiden. How could such a guy come to the trial, left behind by the heaven-covering Jindi? It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. He had to kill a large group of aristocratic family disciples to get this spot in Yanjing City. When this aristocratic family disciple saw that Yi Wenjun had gotten a spot with such trash strength, he was naturally very unhappy. He didn't hold back and directly began to mock Yi Wenjun. Speaking of which, Yuzhong City was indeed very weak. Apart from Yi Wenjun, there was no one else from the aristocratic families in Yuzhong City. Although there were far fewer aristocratic families in Yuzhong City than in Yanjing City, there were still 6 great Jindi aristocratic families. It was very interesting that the other 5 aristocratic families didn't join Yuzhong City's team. Was it because the other 5 aristocratic families in Yuzhong City didn't have any suitable sword-bearers? Or were the descendants of these aristocratic families stupid? Or was it because Liu Lei and Zhu Wudao didn't allow these aristocratic families to join the team? No matter which reason it was a very bad thing for Yuzhong City. Hearing the other party's mockery, Yi Wenjun's face turned green and then red. The person who mocked him thought that he had poked Yi Wenjun's sore spot, which was why his expression changed. He felt a lot better. Unbeknownst to him, Yi Wenjun was only considering whether or not he should reveal his identity. If he did, would this aristocratic family become angry and hate the heaven-covering family? Fortunately, someone immediately appeared to solve this problem for Yi Wenjun. Su Tianyuan waddled over to the scion's side and clapped him on the shoulder. Brother Yuan Fong, you're really smart. How did you figure out that this young master, Yi Wenjun, is a descendant of Jitian Jindi? I'm impressed, truly impressed. If you're still guessing, I don't even need to think to know. Wait, Su Tianyuan, what did you say? Only then did the Yuan Fong brothers react. They turned their heads around in a daze, looked at Su Tianyuan and asked, Tell me, what is this person's name? Whose descendant is he? His name is Yi Wenjun. Of course, he's a descendant of Jitian Jindi I Ching. Didn't you just guess? Or with my toes? It seemed that the relationship between Su Tianyuan and this Yuan Fong must be very bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't ridicule this poor child like that. He's a descendant of Shroud Heaven Jindi. This Yuan Fong was completely dumbfounded. Was there anyone in this world who was more embarrassed than he was right now? Ridiculing someone's ancestor was only Jitian Jindi. In the end, this person's ancestor really was Jitian Jindi. What the hell was going on? This Yuan Fong instantly felt his face burning. He felt dizzy, as if everyone around him was laughing at him. He wanted to escape from this embarrassing place. But if he really escaped, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in the circle ever again. In that moment, this Yuan Fong was like an ant on a hot pan. He didn't know if he should leave or not. It was worse than killing him. Jetian Jindi's descendant is here. One of the scions said in a low voice. Yeah, this person is actually a descendant of Jetian Jindi. Another scion chimed in. Strange. Shouldn't Jetian Jindi's descendant be in our circle? How come I've never seen him in our QQ group? Aristocratic families were really keeping up with the times. They actually had QQ groups. His strength looks so weak. Is he hiding his strength? A disciple from an aristocratic family who was concerned about his strength asked. Maybe. I heard that Jetian Jindi is an expert at pretending to be a pig to eat tigers. Maybe they have some kind of skill for pretending to be a pig to eat tigers. In a short time, Iwenjun had exploded in the circle of aristocratic families in Yanjing City. The heaven-shrouding imperial sword was too strong, and the heaven-shrouding aristocratic family hadn't appeared in the circle of aristocratic families for a long time. Although the heaven-shrouding aristocratic family had become a laughingstock in the past, they had been dormant in Yuzhong City for more than 200 years. Now that they had suddenly appeared, they must be preparing to shock everyone. These discussions weren't hidden from Iwenjun. Instead, they were openly discussing, which made Iwenjun feel very awkward. The heaven-shrouding aristocratic family wasn't dormant at all. They were conserving their strength and preparing to shock everyone. The heaven-shrouding aristocratic family was just too terrible. They were so terrible that they didn't dare to appear in front of other aristocratic families. All of you shut up. The mystic sword spirit roared. Immediately, all the scions who were discussing shut their mouths. The confusion sword spirit was almost the default sword bearer of the immortal sword tier. He was famous among all the aristocratic families, and no one dared to disobey his words. Jetian Jindi's descendant, tell me, who are the other 3 people? The mystic sword spirit asked excitedly. He was a fan of Jetian Jindi. He admired Jetian Jindi very much. Naturally, he was also very curious about the 3 people Jetian Jindi mentioned were stronger than him. He wanted to know who it was that could make even Jetian Jindi sigh in admiration. Oh, Iwenjun was a little flustered, but he quickly composed himself and replied, the first one is His Majesty the Sword Ancestor. The Elder Ancestor said that the Sword Ancestor's swordsmanship is unparalleled and peerless. He is the only one in the world. In terms of swordsmanship alone, the 2 of them together may be able to rival the Sword Ancestor. Yes, His Majesty Kinzu turned the tide. He established our sword wielder's eternal legacy. He fought 8 Desolate-class Yuan Ko and didn't lose. Jetian Jindi really can't compare to His Majesty Kinzu. The Chaos Sword Spirit nodded. Perhaps the Chaos Sword Spirit would not be convinced if it was someone else, but it was a matter of course for the Sword Ancestor. In this world, there was no one who was more powerful than the Sword Ancestor. The others who were listening to Iwenjun, including the Eagle Cat Sword Spirit and Ku Rakin, nodded involuntarily. Kinzu being number 1 was the consensus of everyone. It was politically correct, and there was nothing to refute. What about the second person? The mystic sword spirit asked impatiently. The second person is the freelancer, the sword demon, Dugu seeking byloss. When the elder ancestor was at the immortal sword tier, he once met Dugu seeking byloss. Both of them sparred with the sword for 3 days and 3 nights. After that, the ancestors said that Dugu Chiobai was not as good as him when using a soft sword. But when it came to other heavy swords and hard swords, he was not as good as Dugu Chiobai. But in a real battle, both sides could not use soft swords, so the ancestors lost to Dugu Chiobai. It's him. The crowd was in an uproar again. Dugu Chiobai was a very unique Yuan Ko. Some said that he was the father of Dugu Chiotian, who died in the hands of humans and Jiandi. In short, this person was the same as Dugu Chiotian, a unique Yuan Ko who did not participate in any killing of humans. But he also refused to join the free cities, so it was hard to define whether he was a freelancer or a Yuan Ko. Dugu Seeker of Defeat had not appeared for hundreds of years. During the period when Dugu Seeker of Defeat often appeared, very few people could really fight against him. It was said that he only fought against those who could possibly defeat him. Just like his name, Dugu's Seeker of Defeat, only seeking one defeat. When Dugu's Seeking a Loss was active, he had fought with many sword masters. Without exception, all of them were defeated by Dugu's Seeking a Loss. There is no doubt that his swordsmanship was superb. Who would have thought that even the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor would be defeated by Dugu Chiyobai? What about the other person? Who was the other person? Although the confused sword spirit was still skeptical about Dugu Chiyobai's ability to defeat Zhetian Jindi, in general, the confused sword spirit believed it. Because it was the president of the Swordmaster Association, it knew all kinds of information left by sword masters in the past 1,000 years. Most of the information was devoted to describing Dugu's Seeker of Bai's prowess, as well as the admiration of those sword masters who had been defeated by Dugu's Seeker of Bai's sword. Many of them even wanted to become Dugu's Seeker of Bai's disciple, but Dugu's Seeker of Bai didn't care about any of them and left after defeating them. From the memories of Dugu Chiyobai, the confused sword spirit could feel Dugu Chiyobai's unimaginable strength. In fact, Kenzu and Dugu Chiyobai being able to defeat Zhetian Jindi was also within the confused sword spirit's expectations. Iwenjun was just confirming it for him. But no matter how hard it tried, the confused sword spirit could not figure out who these three people were. Perhaps after Zhetian Jindi, there were one or two sword masters who could theoretically defeat Zhetian Jindi. But before Zhetian Jindi, the confused sword spirit was sure that there was no third person who could defeat Zhetian Jindi. The confused sword spirit could not figure out who these three people were. Therefore, the confused sword spirit became agitated and impatient. It held Iwenjun's hand tightly and asked. Its strength was so strong that it almost broke Iwenjun's wrist. Its master. Its master. Iwenjun was in pain and quickly said, "It's the old ancestor's master." The old ancestor said that all his sword skills were taught by his master, and he only received 10% of his master's true skills. Therefore, his master is the strongest sword master in the world. Master? The confused sword spirit was stunned when it heard this answer. Zhetian Jindi's master. This was a goddamn answer. The disciple's skills were not as good as the master, so it was only natural that Zhetian Jindi's sword skills were not as good as his master's. However, 99% of the information and records regarding the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor were in the hands of the confusion sword spirit. Not a single word was written in the information that the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor had a master. Could it be that there was some great secret hidden in the historical records? Just like this training ground that suddenly appeared. Before this week, no one knew that Zhetian Jindi had left such a training ground. Who is His Majesty Zhetian's master? What's his name? The confused sword spirit stared into Iwenjun's eyes and asked. Looking into the confused sword spirit's eyes, Iwenjun shivered. He felt that if he could not answer this question, he would die a horrible death. I think he was called the Master of Toning. Iwenjun scratched his head and tried hard to remember. Yes, that's the name. Master of Toning? I've never heard of it. The confused sword spirit fell into deep thought. But Gahan, who was at the side, broke out in cold sweat. Toning, isn't that the military governor? Chapter 372. Pack your things and set off with Tian Yuan. After resting in the temporary camp for less than an hour, the Bumi sword spirit summoned all the sword bearers from Yinjing and Yuzhong City and announced that they were ready to enter the trial ground. Sir, are we not going to wait for the people from the other 6 cities? One of the sword bearers from Yinjing City raised his hand and asked, "Why should we wait for them? This is the trial ground built by Zhijindi of Huaxia. They can only blame themselves for being too far away from here." The Eagle Cat sword spirit grinned. The reason why Yinjing City spread the news to all 8 base cities was so that it would not destroy the atmosphere of human unity. However, if the people from the other cities were late because of the long journey, they could not blame Yuzhong City and Yinjing City for leaving first. Changyang Mountain was probably a place that had not been visited for hundreds of years. There were towering trees everywhere. Under Su Tinyuan's guidance, the group took many turns and finally arrived at the entrance of a cave. This is the place. The trial ground is in here. Su Tianyuan led everyone into the cave. After walking for a short distance, they saw a faint light shining from the depths of the cave. As they went deeper, the light became brighter and brighter until it was almost as bright as day. At this time, Gohan and the others had also arrived at the real entrance of the trial ground. It was a hall the size of a basketball court. There was a huge LED screen on one of the walls of the hall. The screen was lit up, but there were no pictures on it. There was only a sentence displayed on the screen. This is the trial ground for the younger generation. Sword bearers above treasure sword level will have their swords broken. Below this sentence was a small line of words. I Ching's friendly reminder. Is this really the trial ground left? By Zhijiendi? The Bumi sword spirit asked when she saw the line of words on the screen. What if this is a trap set by Yuan Ko and the others? These young people are the future hope of our two base cities. If anything happens to them here, the future of humanity will be finished. As soon as Confusion Sword Spirit's voice trailed off, the display screen that said, "This is the training ground for juniors. Trespassers above the level of treasured swords will have their sword marks broken," was instantly replaced by another line of words. The second horizontal piece of the ceiling on the 6th floor of the Yuzhong Sword Tower's office was smashed. After a minute, the line of words changed back to what it was before. This is the training ground for the younger generation. Anyone who wields a sword above the level of a treasure sword will suffer a broken sword scar. It seemed like the words on the LED screen changed automatically every minute. What is the meaning of this? Seeing this sudden change, the Confusion Sword Spirit was taken aback. The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit coughed and explained awkwardly. Ahem, the ceiling had been smashed by Mistress Cloud Sky. In the end, we found a small box hidden in the ceiling. Inside the box was a piece of paper with the words Changyang Mountain Trial Ground. The Confusion Sword Spirit nodded and no longer doubted the safety of the trial ground. I understand now. It seems like this is the training ground left behind by Zhitian Jiendi. The reason was simple. The Yuzhong Sword Tower was built during the era of Zhitian Jiendi. Every brick and tile there was built by Zhitian Jiendi. The place was heavily guarded, especially the Sword Tower Master's office. It was impossible for anyone to enter without the permission of the Sword Tower Master, let alone hide such a brocade box in the ceiling. In that case, there was only one answer. The heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor had personally hidden this brocade box when he was building the Sword Pavilion. This was a secret that only Zhitian Jiendi knew. The reason why Zhitian Jiendi did this was because he guessed that people would doubt the authenticity of the trial ground. Therefore, he left this message on the LED screen to prove that this was indeed a trial ground created by Zhitian Jiendi and not a trap set up by Yuan Ko. His Majesty Zhitian is truly meticulous. The Confusion Sword Spirit's face was filled with sincere admiration. As a loyal fan of Zhitian Jiendi, he became even more loyal. Sigh. Although we can prove that this is indeed a trial ground left behind by His Majesty Zhitian, I don't understand why he would hide it from us. If it weren't for the two from the Lun Yin family and the Confucian family, we wouldn't have known that there was a trial ground hidden here even after 1,000 years, the Eagle Cat complained. Brother Eagle Cat, you're wrong. In my opinion, you're the one who messed up the sequence, the Confusion Sword Spirit said. Sequence? What sequence? You all think that the note hidden in the Sword Tower is to prove that the ruins were indeed set up by His Majesty Jiendi. Why don't you think about it the other way? That note is the correct way to open the trial ground. The correct way to open the trial ground is that His Majesty Zhitian wants you to find the note hidden in the ceiling and find the trial ground. He doesn't want you to find the trial ground for some inexplicable reason and then find the note. Confusion Sword Spirit, when did you become so talkative? The Eagle Cat complained. Forget it. No matter what, this trial ground is safe. Let's arrange for these little fellows to enter the trial ground. By the way, Tianyuan, where's the entrance to the trial ground? It's here. Su Tianyuan walked to a spot in the northwest of the hall. The color of the floor was obviously different from the rest. The Confusion Sword Spirit and the Eagle Cat walked over to take a look and gasped. Why did the lines and equipment on the floor look exactly like the quantum teleportation circle? This is a quantum teleportation circle. The Eagle Cat muttered in disbelief. It was not clear if he was asking the Confusion Sword Spirit or the Confusion Sword Spirit. If I'm not blind, then this is definitely a quantum teleportation circle. The Confusion Sword Spirit was also puzzled. This quantum teleportation circle was obviously a piece of black technology that humans had only developed in the last 100 years. How could Jitian Jindi set up a quantum teleportation circle here 700 years ago? At that time, humans had only just recovered the technological level before the Great Apocalypse. Perhaps he obtained the quantum teleportation circle from Yuan Ko, who specialized in science and technology. Some of the more technologically advanced Yuan Ko and Jitian Jindi might have obtained the quantum teleportation circle from them. This was the most reasonable explanation the Eagle Cat could come up with. Forget it. We'll let those scientists worry about this. Now, let these little fellows step into the quantum teleportation circle and enter the trial ground. The Confusion Sword Spirit said decisively. This is the trial ground? When Gahan woke up from the dizziness brought about by the quantum teleportation circle, he found himself in a space surrounded by opaque walls of light. He was firmly surrounded by these walls of light on all sides. Only the top of his head was not covered by the walls of light. He could see the rock ceiling that was more than 20 meters high. Gahan should be in the inner space of Changyang Mountain. The whole mountain had been hollowed out by Jitian Jindi. This enclosed space was not big, but it was not small either. Guhan estimated that this space should be a standard square space of 10 meters by 10 meters, which was about the size of an ordinary apartment. Song Yifei and the others who had passed through the teleportation circle with Gahan were not next to Gahan. It seemed that the final landing point was different every time they were teleported. Guhan guessed that every sword-bearer who entered the trial ground would most likely be placed in a room that was covered by a wall of light. What's there to train in such a small space? Could it be that the first step is to test how we can break through this wall of light that's surrounding us? Guhan walked to the side of the wall of light and touched it with his hand. He found that the wall of light felt like flesh to the touch, or rather, it felt like the bouncy and beautiful body of a young girl. Gahan tried to use force to see if he could break through the limits of the wall of light. In the end, he found that no matter how much force he used, it would be absorbed by the wall of light. It was impossible to break through the blockade of this wall of light with the strength of a sword-bearer at the treasure sword level. Participants, please take your position at the starting point. A dignified male voice rang out in the space. Gahan had seen some rare video material left by Jitian Jindi. In those videos, Jitian Jindi I Ching spoke exactly like this male voice. Gahan noticed that in the middle of the room, there were two words written in white paint, starting point. It seemed that the male version of Jitian Jindi wanted Gahan to stand on the words starting point. Gahan obeyed and stood on it obediently. Then a hole appeared in the ground in front of Gahan, and a die the size of a watermelon rose out of the hole. Throw the die and decide your fate, Jitian Jindi said. Gahan was still very obedient. He picked up the die and threw it into the air. The die spun for a while, and finally, the side with the word 5 on it landed on the top. You can take 5 steps forward, Jitian Jindi said concisely. Just like that, the wall of light in front of Guhan disappeared. Inside the wall of light, there was also a 10-meter by 10-meter space surrounded by the wall of light. Gahan stepped into the next room, and the wall of light that had been opened before immediately closed up again. However, the wall of light in the second room opened up again. Gahan kept going through the opening of the wall of light to enter the next room. When he entered the fifth room, the wall of light stopped opening, and Gahan was trapped in the fifth room. Isn't this Monopoly? Gahan seemed to have understood the rules of this trial. Chapter 373. Monopoly was said to be a very popular game before the apocalypse. It was invented by Wang Shirtsong, the son of the richest man in China at that time. It was said that Wang Shirtsong was very dissolute. He bought a super cruise ship called Banana Cruise and put it on the boundless sea in Shanghai to have fun. Naturally, Wang Shirtsong didn't stay on the ship alone. There were countless female streamers and other beauties on his ship. Wang Shirtsong was worried. He was only one person, but there were hundreds of female streamers. If he had to go through all of them, he would be squeezed dry. Therefore, Wang Shirtsong invented the game Monopoly creatively. The room number of each female streamer became their serial number. Then, Wang Shirtsong started to roll the dice. The number he rolled would be the number of the female streamer's room. The room number that stopped at the end would be the room that Wang Shirtsong wanted to have fun in. Later on, Wang Shirtsong even innovated and made a whole bunch of action cards, role-playing cards, playstyle cards, item cards, and so on. Then, he would draw a card every time he entered a room. He was so engrossed in it that he forgot everything. When he came back from the sea, he had turned from Lin Zizong to Lin Feng. Guhan stood in the fifth room. Then, a small bar rose up in the middle of the room. Guhan walked to the front of the bar counter and saw such a paragraph of explanation written on the plastic board fixed on the bar counter. 3-star combat room. Defeat the opponent guarding the room to enter the next room. It's time to fight. Gohan's heart skipped a beat. He pulled out Heavenly Sword from his back and released Heavenly Sword from its sword form. According to the requirements of the Confusion Sword Spirit, before entering the trial ground, all the sword ladies had to return to their sword form. Are we going to fight? Heavenly Sword yawned. Her eyes were a little swollen. It seemed that she had drunk a lot yesterday. However, when the word fight was mentioned, Heavenly Sword instantly became energetic. She had been bored to death for the past few days. Fighting was a good way to relax her muscles. The moment Heavenly Sword was released, the small bar returned to the ground. A wall of light suddenly disappeared. A person wearing strange armor slowly walked out of the wall of light and into the room. This person's armor was very gorgeous. It was blue and white, full of the beauty of ancient Greece. However, the design of this armor seemed to have a huge flaw. Although his shoulders, wrists, heart, and navel were protected by armor, other parts of his body were only covered by a thin layer of tight-fitting clothing. Logically speaking, with Guhan's swordsmanship, he had 100 ways to chop those parts that were not protected by armor into minced meat without touching them. However, this was also a common problem with most of the armored Yuan Ko warriors. They only pursued the beauty of the armor and did not consider the actual practicality of the armor or whether it could defend against the enemy's attacks. Not only did it not provide any protection, it would also affect the warrior's mobility and consume the warrior's stamina. Rather than wearing such armor, it was better not to wear it. This way, he could move more quickly, and it would be easier for him to dodge in battle, just like King Yugo Jian's 100 U-sword slaves. That's right, it seems like King Yu's armor is the same as this person's armor. As long as it's sexy, I don't care about anything else. I've seen this armor before. Etienne stared at the person for a long time, then slapped his head. I remember, when I was working for I Ching, I once killed a Yuan Ko like this. Strange, he was clearly killed by me and absorbed by the dimensional whirlpool. So why is his body still here? What do you mean by working for a tiger? Zetian Jindi is a tiger. So you're just sad? Gohan complained in his heart. However, Etienne's words revealed a very important piece of information, which was that this Yuan Ko was the Yuan Ko that Zetian Jindi had defeated. Strange, let me think. What is this Yuan Ko's name again? Etienne tried hard to recall this Yuan Ko's name, but before she could, Gohan answered, he is a bronze saint under the goddess of wisdom Athena of the Western Temple, a bronze saint of Pegasus. That's right, that's the name, bronze saint of Pegasus. After receiving Gohan's hint, Etienne's memory instantly popped up in her mind. This Yuan Ko was the famous Saint Seiya. But I saw on the news a while ago that Saint Seiya of Pegasus protected Athena and repelled Sword Immortal Autumn Rain's ambush, which means that Saint Seiya of Pegasus is still alive. Why is he here? Gohan looked at the Saint Seiya of Pegasus and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Seiya, Upon hearing this name, the Pegasus Saint Seiya, who had been silent all this while, suddenly raised his head and revealed a handsome face. You know Senior Seiya. Senior Seiya is still alive. That's right, at least 3 months ago, Saint Seiya of Pegasus was still alive. 3 months later, I don't know. We don't have this information. Gohan nodded. Alive, it's good that he's alive. The Saint Seiya of Pegasus smiled and touched the right side of his chest with his left hand. I am Bronze Saint of Pegasus, Light-Tooth. Thank you for informing me of Senior Seiya's information. How strange. I remember that Bronze Saint should be at the Ghost grade or Soul grade. Yuan Ko has been infected by the filth of the dimensional rift and lost his rationality, becoming a Yuan Ko who only knows how to kill. How can this Bronze Saint, Light-Tooth, still retain his rationality? As though he saw the doubt in Gohan's heart, the Bronze Saint smiled bitterly. I did lose my rationality, but after I died, my soul and small universe were freed, and I regained my intelligence. Etion raised his brows and asked with interest, You're already dead? Of course, I'm already dead. Back then, you shattered my saint clothes and cut off my head. Don't tell me you've already forgotten about it. Light-Tooth smiled at Etion. TSK, to be able to maintain such a sincere smile towards the enemy who killed him. Saints, especially Bronze Saints, are indeed the embodiment of kindness and beauty. Etion asked, In other words, you're actually a ghost now. Light-Tooth sighed and said, No, my soul has already returned to the world where I should be. Right now, I'm just a trace of His Majesty shrouding heaven's memory. You said that you're shrouding heaven's, Jindy's memory? Gohan was silent for a moment. I heard that the Emperor's sword, Yuan-Tu of Ichi, can sever all things that can be severed. Could it be that the Yuan-Tu of Ichi can also sever memories? I don't know. Light-Tooth shook his head. I only know that I'm a trace of His Majesty shrouding heaven's memory. My mission is to wait for the challenger to defeat me. Come, use your strength to defeat me, or chase me out of this room. Then, you can open the next door and continue forward. All right, I'll fulfill your request. Gohan nodded, then patted Etion's shoulder. This is your old opponent. Defeat him again. Don't be inferior to the previous you. This heroine is 10 times stronger than before. Etion snorted in disdain. She suggested using Etion to attack Light-Tooth's vitals. Unexpectedly, Light-Tooth jumped and took a big step back, directly retreating from the door he just entered from. Victory! As Light-Tooth retreated from the room, the male version of Shrouding Heaven Jindy's voice rang out, indicating that Gohan had already won this battle. Because according to the rules that Light-Tooth had mentioned before, defeating him or chasing him out of the room would be considered a victory. In other words, Etion had only used one sword, and Light-Tooth had already lost. What do you mean? Are you insulting this heroine? Etion's expression was very ugly. Last time, you could clearly last more than 10 moves. Do you think this heroine isn't worthy to be your opponent? No. It's the opposite. It's I, Light-Tooth, who isn't worthy to be your opponent. Light-Tooth shook his head. I've already been tortured to death by you once. I have no interest in being tortured to death by you again. If I had known that this sword mistress was you, I wouldn't have come out. Goodbye, heroine. I wish you and your sword mistress all the best. I hope you and your sword mistress can find the treasure that His Majesty shrouding heaven left behind. After speaking, Light-Tooth disappeared from the door. The disappeared light wall reappeared, surrounding the room once more. The bar also rose up once more. That's strange. I remember that Saint Seiya's, especially Athena's Bronze Saint Seiya's, would all fight to the death without retreating. Even if they died, they seemed to be able to jump out of the netherworld to fight again. Their willpower was terrifying. Why would this Light Fong admit defeat so easily? Because there was no one else around, Gohan didn't think silently. Instead, he directly spoke his thoughts. Now that you mention it, it's a little strange. This heroine also remembers that even after I chopped off his head, he still used his small universe and his body's instincts to exchange 3 moves with me. Even I Ching was amazed by his determination to fight, which was even stronger than a god's. However, this kind of personality of running away when he can't win is very similar to that guy, shrouding heaven. Your descendants are really shameless, always praising that guy shrouding heaven, saying that he's one of the strongest G&D. You don't know how much of a bastard she was when she was young. She only picked Yuan Ko, who had the same strength as her to fight. Once there was any movement, she would be the first to escape. There were a few times when she even left this heroine behind to cover her retreat. It was really infuriating. Etienne recalled some bad memories and complained indignantly. Now that you mention it, I actually understand. Gohan smiled slightly. It seems that this light tooth really is a trace of I Ching's memory. Although his appearance and strength are the same as the real light tooth, his personality has inherited I Ching's own. I really want to know what I Ching left for me here, and what is her relationship with me. Gohan rubbed the jasper ring in his hand and muttered to himself. Chapter 374. At this time, in the hall of the Quantum Teleportation Array at the entrance of the Changyang Mountain Trial Formation, after sending all the sword-bearers to the Quantum Teleportation Array, these two former comrades each took out a massage chair from their dimensional pockets, then lay comfortably on the chair and began to chat. Mystery, where's your Zhang Lu? Why haven't I seen her? The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit had wanted to ask this question for a long time. Unlike his Eagle Cat Sword Spirit, all the sword ladies were artificial and didn't have any spiritual intelligence. They could just be placed in the scabbard, and he didn't have to worry about the sword ladies feeling unhappy or anything. Among the sword ladies of the Mystery Sword Spirit, there was a natural sword lady, which was the spirit sword lady of the Mystery Sword Spirit, Zhang Lu. Zhang Lu was one of the few spirit sword ladies forged by humans, because almost all the sword ladies forged by humans were famous swords, treasured swords, or ancient swords. For example, Dragon Spring Sword was forged in the same furnace as Zhang Lu, so it was a famous sword lady, not a spirit sword lady. Alright, Fish Guts was also forged in the same furnace as Zhang Lu. She was even worse off, as she was only a treasured sword lady. Only a few sword ladies forged by ancient people had crossed the threshold of spirit sword lady, such as Gan Jiang and Emosia. These sword ladies that had crossed the threshold of spirit sword lady were all extremely spiritual, and if they stayed in the scabbard for a long time, they would rebel. Therefore, Zhang Lu would generally follow behind the mystery sword spirit and rarely disappeared. I sent her to greet the sword bearers of Jerusalem base city. The mystery sword spirit curled his lips. Their place is all sand. Where would there be such a dense forest? However, they have already entered the range of Chanyang Mountain, but they can't find the entrance to the trial ground. I can't be separated from the kids in our city, so I can only send Zhang Lu to pick them up. TSK, these donkey heads are really fast. The Eagle Cat mocked. It was obvious that the Eagle Cat didn't like the Jerusalem base city. It could even be said that it disliked it. Jerusalem base city was the only base city in the Middle East, and it was also the only base city ruled by religion. The sword bearers, they were basically madmen from the Green Sect, and it did not have a good reputation among the other 7 base cities. People often heard stupid things like stoning women to death. If it were not for the overall situation of the human race, Yanjing would not have told the people of Jerusalem about the trial ground. Tell Zhang Lu to go around the forest a few more times. It's best if she goes around until nighttime. That way, we can buy more time for our children. The Eagle Cat's sword spirit eye glowed as it came up with this idea. Confusion, sword spirit smile. Have you forgotten? Zhang Lu is born with no sense of direction. The Eagle Cat sword spirit's face stiffened. It spat on the ground before bursting into laughter. You scammer. Why are you even more cunning than I am? Let's not talk about those disgusting donkey heads. Oh, Eagle Cat. Oh, Eagle Cat. How come I've never seen it before? How can you be so shrewd? Confusion Sword Spirit said, with an expression as if he had just been away for 3 days. I'm shrewd. The Eagle Cat Sword Spirit was taken aback. Confusion Sword Spirit, others may not know, but you know me. Back in the days, I had the worst face, the worst temper, the most direct words, and the easiest to offend. Well, have I ever been shrewd? Well, let me ask you, why are you still acting like nothing happened when such a big thing happened in Yuzhong City? You don't look anxious at all. Confused, the sword spirit of confusion asked. Are you talking about Fort Yiyang? The eagle cat sword spirit looked a little gloomy. If it were a few decades ago, I would be happy. But now, I'm not worried about life and death anymore. It's not the first time Fort Yiyang has been attacked, and most of the sword bearers have returned. I don't have anything to worry about. Oh, then you don't have to worry about the invasion that Yuzhong City is about to face. Confusion sword spirit asked. What? What did you say? The eagle cat sword spirit immediately lost his composure. No one had ever told him that Yuzhong City was also facing an invasion. Looks like you've been kept in the dark. Confusion sword spirit shook his head. Looks like Yuzhong City is taking this trial more seriously than I thought. In order to let you lead the team with peace of mind, they even hid such an important matter from you. Me too. I shouldn't have mentioned this to you at all. No, Confusion sword spirit, thank you for telling me this. If you didn't tell me, I'm afraid I would have been kept in the dark forever. The eagle cat sword spirit's expression became a little fierce. What's the situation in Yuzhong City right now? You must tell me everything you know. If Sword Immortal Cloud Sky and Sword Immortal Baiju are keeping this from you, then they must have their reasons. If I tell them, then wouldn't I be ruining the internal affairs of Yuzhong City? The sword spirit Confusion Mist said with a troubled expression. If you don't tell me, you'll be ruining our friendship. Make your choice. The eagle cat sword spirit said very firmly. Sigh, I'm afraid of you. But let's make a deal. You can only return to Yuzhong City after the trial is over. You're not allowed to go back by yourself. I'm not responsible for looking after your child, Confusion sword spirit said. Don't worry, I'm not that kind of person. The eagle cat sword spirit nodded in agreement. Actually, I don't know much. I only know that this time, the Western Demon Beasts and the Western Temple of God have joined forces to attack Yuzhong City. They've already occupied Fort Yiyang as their base and are preparing to launch a major attack on Yuzhong City. I can confirm that at least 4 U-level Yuan Ko have already arrived at Fort Yiyang. Right now, Yuzhong City has entered the highest state of alert. They've also sent out a request for help to the other 8 base cities. I don't know about the other cities, but our Yinjing City swordbearers have already set out to support Yuzhong City under the leadership of the 10 Directions Immortal Sword. However, the road from Yinjing City to Yuzhong City has already been closed. We can only reach Yuzhong City through the Fujian province. This is the news I received yesterday. The signal in Gansu province is too bad. Since then, I haven't been in contact with Yinjing City. I don't know the latest situation. Confusion Sword Spirit said everything he knew. Thank you. The eagle cat sword spirit clasped his fists at Confusion Sword Spirit gratefully. Confusion Sword Spirit, there's something I've never told you before. Now, I'm going to tell you. Oh, what is it? Don't tell me you've confessed to Mia Extermination. Confusion Sword Spirit joked. Mia Extermination was a sword bearer who teamed up with Confusion Sword Spirit and the eagle cat. Now, he was a spirit sword level sword bearer. Back then, the eagle cat sword spirit had a crush on Mia Extermination. However, due to various reasons, he never confessed. Later, the eagle cat sword spirit's parents arranged a blind date and found someone to marry. Since then, the matter had died down. Who would have thought that the eagle cat sword spirit would bring it up now? No, I haven't been in contact with Mia Extermination for 3 months. The eagle cat sword spirit blushed. All right, you and I haven't been in contact for 3 years. And you said you still have a crush on Mia Extermination. Look, Mia Extermination is still alone. You still have a chance as long as... Enough! The eagle cat sword spirit forcefully interrupted the Confusion Sword Spirit. Confusion Sword Spirit, what I want to tell you is that I, the eagle cat, am that kind of person. What? What do you mean? The Confusion Sword Spirit was dumbfounded. When he reacted, the eagle cat sword spirit's figure disappeared from the hall. Confusion Sword Spirit, I'll leave the children of Yuzhong City to you. Bring them back to Yinjing City. If anything happens to Yuzhong City, they will be the last seeds of Yuzhong City. The eagle cat sword spirit's words echoed in the air. This guy still has the same temper. He hasn't changed in his life. The confusion sword spirit smiled bitterly. He had no intention of chasing the eagle cat sword spirit back, even if he could easily catch up with the eagle cat and suppress it to the point where it couldn't move. Damn it, throwing these children on my head again. What I'm afraid of has happened. Confusion sword spirit muttered. He had tacitly accepted the eagle cat sword spirit's entrustment. Strange, the people from Jerusalem are already at the door. Could it be that Jean-Lou's poor sense of direction has been cured? After a few minutes, the confusion sword spirit was shocked again. After defeating the bronze Saint Seiya, a die appeared on the newly raised bar. This meant that Gahan could move forward again. Gahan threw the die, casually. Luck was not bad on his second roll. He actually rolled a 6. Without any nonsense, Gahan directly passed through the 6 rooms. A new bar rose up, and the information of the room was written on it. Event room. Please draw an event card to trigger a new event. This was indeed the trick of a tycoon. The side of the small bar suddenly opened. Countless cards made of unknown materials flew out from the open small opening. After dancing in the air for a while, they neatly arranged themselves into a square formation. It was just like the broadcast gymnastics in the school field. Gahan carefully observed these cards. He noticed that there were some complicated decorative patterns on the back of the cards. The words event were written in the center, as if to prove that these cards were indeed event cards. However, there was nothing on the front of the card. It was just a piece of white paper without any words. Please draw a card. The male version of Jindy's voice sounded again. Perhaps the specific words would only be revealed after the card was drawn. Gahan counted the number of cards and found that there were 12 horizontally and 10 vertically. There was a total of 120 cards. There was nothing much to choose from. Gahan randomly picked one card from the square formation. After Gahan made his choice, the rest of the cards flew back to the interior of the bar. Then, as expected, a line of words appeared on the originally blank card. You have encountered a dimensional shift. You will randomly appear in any space within the trial array. Before Gahan could react after reading this, a strong light shone directly into Gahan's eyes, causing Gahan to instantly lose his vision. After the strong light dissipated, he heard an extremely cautious and nervous voice. Who are you, demon? State your name. Wait, why does this voice sound so familiar? Chapter 375. Gahan, why are you here? Am I starving to the point that I'm in a trance? Liu Ling rubbed her eyes in disbelief. She had never imagined that Gahan would suddenly appear in front of her. Ling, Gahan's eyes finally regained their normal vision. Then he saw Liu Ling standing in front of him. This made Gahan heave a sigh of relief in his heart. Finding Liu Ling meant that one of the objectives of this trip had been achieved. However, this objective had been achieved a little too easily. He had only entered the trial grounds for about 10 minutes, and he had already successfully found Liu Ling. Gahan had thought that he would have to search for at least 10 minutes before he could see Liu Ling. Hey, cut the crap. I'm asking you, do you have any food on you? Liu Ling's face was full of surprise. She was so surprised that stars could be seen in her eyes. She stared at Gahan passionately as she asked. Of course I do. Gahan nodded. In order to feed this adorable Qing pin, he had restocked once before he set off and again at Fort Yiyang. Naturally, he had no lack of food on him. Gahan took out some steaming hot rice, green vegetables, bright red braised pork, unopened ham sausages, a bag of beef jerky, and the last kilogram of crispy crisp from his dimensional pocket. That's right. Gahan had also very considerately brought out bowls and chopsticks for Liu Ling to use. That's all. You can eat. Halfway through Gahan's sentence, Liu Ling began to eat unceremoniously. She directly picked up the basin of braised pork, picked up the chopsticks, and put them in her mouth like dumplings. She took a random bite and stuffed it straight into her stomach. Seeing that almost a quarter of the braised pork in the basin was gone, Liu Ling reluctantly put down the braised pork. She slowly scooped up a bowl of rice and picked up some vegetables. At this moment, Liu Ling finally displayed the elegance of a young lady from an aristocratic family. When Liu Ling put down her bowl and chopsticks, indicating that she really couldn't eat anymore, Gahan took back all the food. Isn't it a little embarrassing? Seeing Gahan clean up the dishes like a housewife, Liu Ling's face started to flush. I'm not like this usually, I'm just too hungry. Liu Ling tried her best to explain, and I don't eat much, but not only have I not eaten for the past few days, I've also been fighting every day, so my appetite has suddenly increased. I usually only eat half, about a third. A quarter of a basin of braised pork, 5 whole bowls of rice, a kilogram of vegetables, and dozens of sausages. Even if this was multiplied by a third, it would still be a frightening appetite. It's fine, I'm used to it. You don't even eat a third of what Qing Pin eats. You don't have to worry about it. Gohan said seriously. He really wasn't complaining. Hey, Gahan, is this the young lady from the Lionian aristocratic family that you're trying to save? Etian, who had been drinking and laughing at the two of them, immediately perked up when she saw that Liu Ling had finally finished eating. She took the initiative to ask, Hey, little girl, let me ask you, who is this person from the Lionian aristocratic family? He's Ling's 7th-generation ancestor. Liu Ling answered without even thinking. It seemed that Liu Ling had memorized the names of the Lionian aristocratic family's ancestors. Your lady Etian? Liu Ling had been so focused on eating that she didn't even look at Etian. Now that Etian had taken the initiative to ask, Liu Ling began to observe Etian. She quickly recognized that this sword lady was Etian. How did you recognize me? Etian asked curiously. The gourd on Lady Etian's head is unique and unparalleled. Naturally, Ling recognized it with a single glance. Liu Ling smiled and bowed to Etian. The 29th generation descendant of the Lionian aristocratic family greets Lady Etian. This was the greeting that every sword wielder would use when meeting a new sword lady. However, this was only limited to natural-born sword ladies. Man-made sword ladies could not receive this treatment. After all, man-made sword ladies had worrisome intelligence. Whether they had a soul or not was a matter of debate. Not bad, Guhan. You've actually managed to synchronize with Lady Heavenly. When Lady Heavenly and I touched the hilt of Lady Heavenly's sword, Lady Heavenly didn't react at all. She didn't like me at all. How pitiful. Fleeting Cold, who had eaten her fill, returned to her noisy personality. She began to discuss Etian with Gahan. To be honest, Liu Ling was a little jealous of Gahan. This guy had actually succeeded with Lady Etian. It seemed that not only had she suffered in coming to Chanyang Mountain, she had also missed out on many interesting things. This is fate. Gohan's reply was concise and comprehensive. Liu Ling could not refute him. As a result, Liu Ling began to ask questions to Etian. She pulled on Etian's arm intimately and asked unhappily, Lady Etian, why didn't you choose me? Why'd you choose this guy? This is fate. Etian sighed. If I could choose, I would definitely choose you. How great is it? I've long wanted to become the sword lady of your Lionian aristocratic family. Unfortunately, fate makes fools of people. I always meet stupid swordsmen like you. Cough, cough, Ling, what happened just now? Why are you so hungry? Didn't you just disappear for 2 weeks? Gahan felt that he had to interrupt this conversation. Otherwise, who knew how Etian would ridicule him? For some reason, when Gahan saw Liu Ling, he actually felt a little excited. He did not want to embarrass himself in front of Liu Ling. However, the question he had just asked was also a question in Gahan's mind. He could not understand why Liu Ling was so hungry. Due to the existence of the dimensional pocket, every sword wielder would store enough food to last them for about a year in their dimensional pocket. Some cautious sword bearers would even store 3 or even 10 years' worth of food. Gahan really could not understand. Liu Ling had only disappeared for 2 weeks. Why did it seem like she had not eaten for 5 or 6 days? Don't mention it. I'm so unlucky. Liu Ling was infuriated by Gahan's question. You don't know. That sky covering G&D is crazy. What kind of stupid test is he giving me? He want me to compete with a husky in terms of eating, and if I lose, I have to hand over all my food except for the nutrient solution. So you lost? Asked Gahan. Yes, I lost. Lian Ling nodded. How can a human eat more than a husky? But don't you have the nutrient solution? Only a husky would eat that kind of disgusting stuff. Hey, Gahan, thank you. After a moment of silence, Lian Ling raised her head and looked into Gahan's eyes and spoke with sincerity. Gahan could see tears in Lian Ling's eyes. The young lady of the Fleeting Time family is actually crying. You don't have to thank me. I'm not the only one who came to save you. Many people from Yinjing City, Yuzhong City, and the other 6 base cities have all sent people to save you, Guhan said calmly. They're here for this training ground. Lian Ling said with disdain. They can't wait for me to die here. That would be the end of the Fleeting Time family line. What a wonderful thing. Then have you ever thought that I'm here for the trial as well? Gahan retorted. In truth, Gahan knew that he was not here because of Lian Ling. He was here because of the promise he made to Yi Qing in the dungeon. Who cares about that? I know you're here, and you're the first person to find me. Lian Ling shook her head and leaned on Gahan's shoulder. You don't know this, but I've always thought that I'm a strong person. It's only after I brought these people here that I realized how fragile I am. I could be afraid, lonely, fearful, and hungry. You might not believe it, but I've always thought that I'm a chosen one before I came here. I'm the heir of the Fleeting Time family, and these emotions will never appear on me. Look, Gahan, I'm really happy to see you appear in front of me. The moment I saw you, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. Fate in this world is really wonderful. I went to Yuzhong City just for Yixian, but I didn't expect to meet you in Qingpin. I didn't expect to pretend to be a couple with you. The most unexpected thing is that the first person I saw in this endless wait and hunger is you. Gahan, don't you think this is fate? It's fate. Is this the true feelings of a young girl? When Gahan heard Lian Ling's words, even if his heart was ruthless, his whole body was stirred up. No matter how stupid Gahan was, he could still hear the heart of a young girl from Lian Ling's words. Lian Ling has fallen in love with me. Gahan is almost certain. So, does Gahan like Lian Ling? Gahan can't answer this question himself. Before he met Qingpin, Gahan could tell himself very clearly that he won't fall in love with anyone before he avenges parents. But now, Gahan doesn't know the answer. Gahan's heart is no longer the cold, dark Gahan who can kill the Fleeting Time calendar. Gahan's heart has been half occupied by the winter sun. Gahan knows how to care for others, think for others, take care of others' difficulties. Yes, he also knows how to complain. In short, Gahan can no longer tell himself very clearly that he wants to be a heartless person. Do I like Lian Ling? Gahan asked himself this question again. Maybe he likes her a little, but more than that, he is at a loss. I don't know if this is fate, if this is fate. Finally, Gahan said firmly, but I will definitely take you out, take you away from here. When he said this, Artoria's appearance appeared in Gahan's mind for no reason. She was wearing a white wedding dress. Chapter 376. How is it? How much do you know about Fort Yuyang? Inside the conference room, Zhu Wudao was discussing the situation with his subordinates. The day before yesterday, which was the 3rd day after Fort Yuyang was conquered, the fort was completely shrouded in a black fog. Fort Yuyang was completely shrouded in a black fog. Not only could this black fog block vision, but it could also block all detection devices. The 100 drones from Yuzhong City never came out after flying in. Obviously, they had all been destroyed by the Yuanshan inside. Zhu Wudao had no choice but to take the risk. He sent a team of sword bearers, all of whom were treasure-grade sword maidens, into the black fog. They used their naked eyes to scout the situation at Fort Yuyang. The void-piercing sword maidens were treasure-grade sword maidens, and their fighting abilities were extremely weak. They were among the bottom few sword maidens of the same rank. However, the void-piercing sword maidens had a special ability. They could travel through space within a kilometer. If they risked their lives, they could even travel through space continuously. It was the best way to scout and escape. Sure enough, the small team successfully rushed out of the black fog and brought the latest news from Yuyang Fortress. However, this news made Zhu Wudao feel a little hopeless. Sir, according to the team's information, not only did they find the Western Beast and Western Temple's Yuan Ko, but even the Martyr's Palace's Yuan Ko has appeared. According to their calculations before they fled, they sensed the aura of 5 Universe Yuan Ko and 26 Nether and Meteor Yuan Ko. However, the detection range of the Delusion Splitter doesn't cover the entire Fort Yuyang. At least a third of the area hasn't been detected, so the number of Yuan Ko might be even higher. An official from the intelligence department answered carefully. At the same time, his heart was filled with pessimism. The Delusion Splitter was the only unique existence among the void-piercing sword maidens. Its ability was to break through magical barriers within a certain range and see the real situation around it. The void-piercing sword maidens had to bring along the Delusion Splitter when they moved. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get any real information. There were already so many Yuan Ko's that had been detected. Including those that hadn't been detected, Yuan Ko's strength was already more than 3 times that of the entire Yuzhong City. This was a power that could definitely break through Yuzhong City's system. It's okay. How's our scouting team? Are they all right? Zhu Wudao coughed. The situation is not looking good. The leader of this team sacrificed 60 years of his life in order to escape with the Delusion Vanquishing Sword. He sacrificed himself on the way back to Yuzhong City. The rest of the team members also consumed an average of about 30 years of their lifespan. At this point, tears welled up in the corner of the official's eyes. They were clearly young men in their 20s or 30s, but now all of their hair is white and their sideburns are white. They look like old men in their 60s. Their lifespans have been greatly overdrawn. They are all heroes of Yuzhong City. Zhu Wudao's hands trembled slightly. This was intolerable for an immortal sword wielder. This meant that Zhu Wudao was already old, so old that he couldn't even control his own body. Let them have a good rest, then go to the warehouse to get the eternal water for them to drink. This is the last thing we can do. Zhu Wudao said weakly. The eternal water was a type of spiritual water that could increase one's lifespan. It was a very rare treasure. There were very few reserves in Yuzhong City. Usually, it was used by sword immortals and sword spirits to increase their lifespans. Now that Zhu Wudao had given such a treasure to a group of treasure sword wielder, it could be considered as making up for some of the guilt in his heart. What about the other base cities? Have their reinforcements arrived? Zhu Wudao recovered his emotions and returned to a calm state. He began to inquire about the situation in the other base cities. The current situation in Yuzhong City was very obvious. It was impossible to resist this attack with Yuzhong City's own strength. They could only hope that they could get enough support from the other base cities. The first rescue team from Yinjing City has set off. It is estimated that they will arrive in Yuzhong City in 3 days. In addition, the Leonian family has sent people to negotiate with the dragon race of the East Sea, hoping to use the power of the dragon race to transport reinforcements from London and Los Angeles. However, they will only arrive in 10 days at the earliest. What about the other 4 cities? Have they replied to us? Zhu Wudao was a little angry. Why had only 3 base cities expressed their stance? What about the other 4? Were they going to leave them to die? Jerusalem City said that they are in the middle of Ramadan and must wait until Ramadan is over before they can support us. Leningrad City said that they have also detected a large number of Yuan Ko gathering around them. Maybe they will ask for reinforcements then. Berlin City and Buenos Aires City did not have any reply. Their immortal sword wielder doesn't seem to be in the cities, so they can't give them clear orders. F***, these bastards. Have they forgotten how Yuzhong City did its best to help them when they were in trouble? These bastards. Zhu Wudao could no longer control his emotions. Only 3 of the other 7 base cities have agreed to send reinforcements. 2 of the base cities' reinforcements will only arrive in 10 days. What does this mean? Will Yuan Ko wait 10 days before attacking the city? President, please calm down. You are the one who needs to stay calm the most in the city. The official tried to persuade him. Zhu Wudao waved his hand weakly. Go and do your investigation. Report to me immediately about Yuan Ko's every move. Go. Yes, sir. The official retreated. Zhu Wudao's eyes looked past the window towards the boundless sky. Lu Run, oh Lu Ren. Daddy hopes that you can stay in the trial grounds as long as possible. Daddy might not be able to see you again. You said that you have been trapped in this room for 4 days. Gohan looked at the rising bar counter in confusion. What mission is in this room? It can actually trap you for 4 days. It's this damned apple-picking mission. Speaking of this mission, Liuyan Ling was furious. She pointed at the mission prompt on the bar counter and said, when a mission starts, a fruit tree will appear, and the mission requires me to pick 50 fruits in 3 seconds. How can I do that? I've tried my best, but I can only pick 15 fruits at most. Pick fruits? Gohan was stunned when he heard the contents of the mission. Then, he revealed a strange smile. Ling, can you please demonstrate for me? Are you trying to make fun of me? Liuyan Ling? Liuyan Ling's face was full of anger, but she did not refuse Gohan. Instead, she took a few steps forward, placed her hand on the bar counter, and shouted angrily, I'm ready. The fruit tree will appear in 5 seconds. Please get ready, sky-covering Jindy said in a cold male voice. Then, the entire illusion changed in an instant. The originally undecorated blank room turned into a green grassland. About 5 seconds later, in the center of the grassland, a tall fruit tree rose from the ground. This is an apple tree. Gohan recognized the origin of the tree at a glance. What? You're asking why Gohan knows that this is an apple tree? Isn't this nonsense? Can't you see that the tree is full of apples? The moment the apple tree rose from the ground, Liuyan Ling also jumped up. Her figure was as fast as lightning, passing through the canopy quickly. 3 seconds later, the apple tree disappeared, leaving behind a girl with a bag full of apples in her arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 17, 18, 19, 20. Liuyan Ling began to count the apples in her arms, but Liuyan Ling did not use the normal counting method. Instead, she used the apples as bullets, throwing them at Gohan. Every time she threw them, she counted them. By the time all the apples were thrown, Gohan had been hit a total of 20 times. This is what you get for making fun of me. After hitting Gohan, Liuyan Ling was obviously in a good mood. Her face was also full of a happy smile. She laughed very happily, a kind of happiness that could not be suppressed. She could not remember when was the last time she laughed so happily. As you wish. Gohan shook his head. Fleeting Time Ling was just throwing random apples at him. He did not aim or predict where the apples would land. Gohan was able to dodge all of the apples with ease, and not a single one of them landed on him. However, Gohan did not choose to dodge. Instead, he stood there and used his body to catch all the apples. Anyway, these apples were not painful for Gohan's strong body. At most, it was like being bitten by a mosquito. It was also a good thing to let Liuyan Ling vent. She must have held back a lot of grievances these days. I didn't expect to pick 20 apples this time. It's a third better than my best record. After smashing the apples, Liuyan Ling found that her speed and movement were a lot better than before. This made Liuyan Ling very surprised. When Liuyan Ling's movement was practiced to this level, it was impossible to have a big improvement in a short time unless the physical fitness had been greatly improved. For example, this time's 1/3. Under normal circumstances, Liuyan Ling estimated that she would need at least another 5 years of hard work to achieve it. Above 20, every time he increased the number of apples he could pluck, he would have to put in double the effort. Could it be that because he is by my side, my heart is happy, so I unconsciously improve? Liuyan Ling began to imagine in her heart. Unfortunately, this beautiful idea was mercilessly destroyed by Gohan in less than a second. I guess you should be full and have strength. Gohan, this idiot, said the truth blindly. TSK, if your stomach is full, then come. Let me see how many you can catch. Liu Ling was so angry with Gahan's words that her nose turned red. She shouted for Gahan to try. I'm not in a hurry. Gahan waved his hand. He turned to Etion, who had been watching the show, and said with a smile, Etion, why don't you try? Chapter 377. 1, 2, 3, 4, 22, 23. Etion counted all the apples in her hand. In 3 seconds, Etion had plucked 23 apples. 2 more than Liu Ling. Lady Etion, you're so amazing. Liu Ling clapped with all her might, trying her best to flatter Etion. Of course, amongst all the sword ladies, I, Etion, am one of the best. Etion said cockily. After saying that, he even winked at Guhan. I don't deny that your swordsmanship is one of the best among all the sword ladies. Gahan frowned. But why do you have to throw the apples at me when you're counting? Is there a need for that? Of course, I can throw the apples at other women, but I can't, Etion said with her hands on her hips. Then, Guhan fell silent. He suddenly realized that he couldn't refute Etion's words at all. Even if he could, arguing with a sword lady like Etion would only waste time and lower her favorability towards him. There was no use at all. All right, I've finished plucking. Now it's your turn. Although your swordsmanship isn't as good as mine, you're still half as good as mine. If you can pluck 13 or 14 apples, you'll pass, Etion said cockily. Heaven Reliance said smugly. She seemed to have forgotten just how terrifying Guhan's swordsmanship was in that 1 versus 200 battle. Meanwhile, Liu Ling looked at Gahan with a snicker, waiting for Gahan to pluck the apples. Perhaps I can use this test to see just how much of a gap there is between me and Gahan. Liu Ling mumbled in her heart. She did not have a real understanding of Gahan's swordsmanship. In her opinion, Gahan had only learned ancient martial arts from an unorthodox source. It was impossible for it to be compared to the foundation that had been taught by the Lun Yin aristocratic family since he was young. Gahan nodded and then activated the switch on the small bar counter. 5 seconds later, the apple tree appeared again. Gahan jumped onto the tree, and the leaves danced wildly. When the apple tree disappeared, Gahan appeared in front of everyone with an armful of apples. 15 in total. Gahan naturally wouldn't be like Liu Ling and Etion, using counting as an excuse to play a game of smashing people. Gahan wasn't that childish. He just glanced at the apple indifferently, reported the number, and directly threw the apple on the ground. Not bad, not bad. It's at the level when I was so hungry that I fainted. Liu Ling smiled and clapped her hands, thinking happily in her heart. This idiot's strength was indeed, as she had guessed, much weaker than her. It seemed that she could casually bully him in the future. As for Etion, he gave Gahan a very disdainful look. Liar, if you have the ability, then show me your true strength. Oh, this sentence was said by Etion through the sword mark, so it was impossible for Liu Ling to hear it. This is my true strength. I didn't hide anything. Gahan shook his head and replied, Etion through the sword mark. My meridians haven't been completely connected, so I can only display 60% of my strength. Being able to pluck 15 apples is already the result of my full strength. Yeah, your meridians are damaged? Why didn't I know? Etion was startled. His tone seemed to be a little worried. When it was damaged, I hadn't synchronized with you yet, so of course you didn't know? Gahan smiled bitterly. Moreover, you've never asked me about meridians. Wait, if 15 is 60% of your strength, doesn't that mean your true strength is 25? With a simple division, Etion calculated the shocking number 25. This meant that the baseline of Gahan's strength was higher than Etion's by 2. Although Etion had sensed that Gahan's swordsmanship strength shouldn't be lower than his during the last battle in the Yaoguang Sword Sect Challenge, he didn't expect that Gahan's strength to be a little stronger than his. Although the quantitative comparison of plucking apples was too one-sided and didn't have much value, Etion felt that he was a head shorter than Gahan, just like how he was a head shorter than I Ching back then. What are you guys secretly talking about through the sword mark? Liu Ling saw that Gahan and Etion's expressions were stiff at the same time, and knew that Etion and Gahan were whispering to each other. She started to feel a little sour in her heart. They were actually talking behind her back. It was such a hateful feeling. I just told Etion that my meridians are damaged, so I can't unleash my full strength. Otherwise, I could at least pluck 15. Gahan answered honestly. This was the truth. There wasn't a single bit of falsehood in it. However, when Liu Ling heard this, she couldn't help but chuckle, and the little thoughts in her heart disappeared. It turned out that this Gahan felt that he had lost face in front of her, so he forced his meridians to be damaged. What 25? Even if he trained for another 30 years, he wouldn't be able to break through 25. All right, even if you can pluck 25, it's useless. This task requires you to pluck 50. If you can't do it, you can only wait for 7 days to be directly sent out by the training array. Liu Ling said with waning interest. She had stayed in this training array for 2 more weeks, so naturally, she was very clear about the details and routines of the training array. There were 2 ways to leave this training array. One was to reach the end of the training array, and then she would be able to obtain the reward that Jitian Jindi had placed in the training array. The second way was to stay in a room for 7 days, and then the training array would automatically send you out. However, you would never be able to enter this training array again. This was already the 4th day that Liu Ling had been trapped in this room. In another 3 days, Liu Ling would be forcefully sent out, which made Liu Ling very unhappy. No, things aren't that bad. Plucking 50 apples in 3 seconds is something that can only be done by a spirit sword level sword wielder. However, this training array restricts sword wielder above treasure sword level from entering. This means that there must be a way for sword wielder of treasure sword level to pass the test. It's impossible for Jitian Jindi to set a dead end. Gahan was not infected by Liu Ling's pessimism, but calmly analyzed. As he spoke, he ran to the small bar and carefully read the words written on it a few times. The corner of his mouth revealed a smile of understanding. Ling, let's try again. Gahan touched the small bar and said slowly, Hey, why don't you give up? It's useless even if you try a few more times. No one can pluck 50 apples in 3 seconds. Liu Ling said weakly. She had already been tortured by this damn test for 4 days. She didn't want to pluck any more apples. It's naturally impossible for one person, but what if it's 3 people? Gahan pursed his lips. If you release Heaven's Inquisition, we'll have 4 people. 3 people together? Liu Ling was stunned. You can play like that? Isn't there a limit to 1 person participating? Since I can stay in the same room with you, why can't we complete the test at the same time? Gahan knocked on the small bar counter. From the beginning to the end, this instruction did not state that multiple people are not allowed to move together. Do you think so? The result was self-evident. Gahan, Etion, and Liu Ling rushed into the apple tree at the same time and plucked the apples in a frenzy. In 3 seconds, a total of 58 apples had fallen into the hands of these 3 people. Then, when the small bar rose again, the long-awaited die finally appeared. This also meant that Gahan and Liu Ling had successfully passed the test and could enter the next room. Damn it, this actually works. Liu Ling looked at the die and scratched her head in annoyance. Why didn't I think of this test for multiple people? I was actually trapped by such a simple thing for 4 whole days. Don't make things difficult for yourself. Even if you thought of it before I came, you would still have to wait for 4 days. After all, there would only be 1 person in the entire trial. You wouldn't be able to find anyone to help you. Gahan's words made Liu Ling feel much better. That's right, Gahan was right. This was the truth. It was all Gahan's fault for coming too late. If he had come a step earlier, I would have been able to leave this place long ago. Ling, come and take a look here. Gahan suddenly interrupted Liu Ling, who was trying hard to push the blame away, and called her over to the side of the die. Ling, what do you think? And why are there 2 die here? Liu Ling exclaimed in surprise when she saw the die on the small bar. There were 2 die, 1 big and 1 small, on the small bar. This was a situation that had never happened before. Liu Ling had passed through no less than 30 rooms, and there was only one die every time. There had never been a situation where there were two die. Is it because there are two people in the room now, so there are two die? Liu Ling voiced out her guess. This guess was very reasonable. In the past, there was only Liu Ling, so naturally there was only one die. Now that there was an additional person, Gahan, wouldn't it be normal for there to be two die? No. If the dice were given to both of us, then the dice should be the same size, not a big one and a small one. This big one is double the size of the small one. I know the reason for this die. Itian looked at the die, and his pupils shrank. He recalled some dusty memories. When I Ching encounters something she can't decide, or when she needs to make a choice, she likes to use the die to decide the final result. If the choice only involves her, then she will use a normal-sized die. If it involves two people, she will use a bigger die. If it involves the whole team, she will use a specially made die the size of a big watermelon. But this girl just likes to lie to herself. No matter what the result is, she will only choose according to the answer in her heart. She has never been a person who leaves her fate to fate. She just likes to play with fate. So, I'm guessing that Jatian gave you two die, one big and one small, to let you choose for yourselves whether you want to move forward together or alone in the next trial. If you want to move together, you can use the big die. If you want to move alone, you can use the small die. It's that simple, Itian said as he poured alcohol into his mouth like crazy. After explaining, he turned into a stream of light and flew back into his scabbard. Don't bother me for the next 24 hours. If there's a fight, go find your Qingpin. You should also let her exercise a little. Eating meat every day and not exercising, she might not be able to get married. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.